Do you hear the wife click-clacking away in the background? Wow. I don't know what's up with my strumming tonight. Baby, what's up with my strumming tonight?
Your strumming felt fine on me.
Megan? Knock it off.
You asked for that.
I did ask for that. Huh?
I'm about to push a bunch of buttons.
About to push a bunch of buttons. She said it's cold outside and she hands me my raincoat. She's always worried about things like that. She said it's all gonna end and it might as well be my fault. She only sleeps when it's raining, and she screams, and her voice is strained, and she says, baby, it's 3 a.m., I must be lonely. She says, baby, I can't help be scared of it all sometimes. That the rain's gonna wash away, I believe in. You're cute.
The stylish dance moves
Look at my fingers.
Wow.
Yeah, look at my fingers.
Building some calluses.
No shit.
I'm gonna do new Sanderson ads. I just wanted to let you know.
Ooh, new Sanderson ads. Those always make us money.
I know, and it's been a while since I've done new ones, so.
It's been a while since I could
Do Sanderson ads.
I don't think that's how it goes, babe.
No?
I'm pretty sure.
But first, I'm gonna put the data in about these.
But first.
But first.
And she only sleeps when it's raining.
And she screams, and her voice says strained, and she says, baby, it's 3 a.m., I must be lonely.
Must you, though? Must you be lonely?
She says, baby.
Does she?
I gotta help her.
Chapter... I'm starting. Can I start?
No, you got me started.
Sorry. It's going to be stuck in my head all night, too, if that makes you feel any better.
You're getting good, sweetie. I just want to let you know that.
I feel like I'm improving.
I'm definitely a groupie.
You're always a groupie.
I don't know.
I'm so glad nobody's watching yet.
But they're gonna watch it later. What if they're watching on YouTube?
Watching after the fact. Hello, wonderful YouTube viewer. My wife is a groupie.
Now that that's established.
Or, are you Sean Connery? Well, now that that's established.
I whistled when I said that. Oh, shit.
have my Facebook chat open so I can see in case anybody starts watching on Facebook.
The Book of the Face.
The Book of Faces.
Book of Faces.
Did you know that Restream, the multi-streaming software I use, it now goes directly to Facebook?
Yes, I did. You know why? Because I saw you on Facebook and I tried talking to you.
I used to have to do that manually.
Oh.
I had to add it. Literally, I haven't streamed directly to Facebook yet. This is the first time. Isn't that cool?
That is amazing. It's missing.
Garrett Robinson is live now. All right. Chapter 15. Yeah, that song gets stuck in your head, doesn't it? Chapter 15. I told you of Mag fetching her spear from the reeve. You should know something of that spear before I continue the tale. You had heard before I told you of Mag's prowess in battle, but whatever you have heard, and however well I myself describe it, all tales are inadequate. Never have I seen or heard of such a master when it comes to combat. Her mastery extended to any weapon. In the Battle of Northwood she fought with a sword, you remember, but she became truly terrifying when her spear was in her hands. I was with her when she got that spear, as it happens. We were in the western reaches of Dulmoon. I had persuaded her to join the Silver Stirrups for a time, and that company had been summoned there for sky above, I cannot remember. We were there for months, yet I cannot remember the conflict that brought us, yet I remember every detail of the moment Mag found her spear. It is often that way when we age, and our memory begins to fail us. The two of us had been given a day's leave, and we were spending it in Vaxum, the city that sprang up around the warlike Erod. It was my first time visiting Dulmoon, and I found myself uncomfortable, meaning no offense. To an outsider, your people appear quick not only to laugh, but also to anger, and they almost seem to enjoy settling disagreements with their fists. It left me feeling on edge. But Mag seemed curiously at home in Vaxum. It was strange to see the way she looked at everything, as if she was trying to solve a mystery. Her head was cocked and her eyes were narrowed, and it seemed that half-hidden thoughts swirled around each other in her mind. "What is it, Mag?" I asked her. "You look pleased to be here and at the same time confused." "I suppose both are true," she said. "There's something familiar about this place, though I have never been here that I recall." "Mayhap you came here as a child," I said. "Mayhap," she murmured. Suddenly she stopped dead in the street, staring at a shop. I looked it over. It seemed to be the shop of a bladesmith, but a far grander one than I had ever seen. 2 stories tall it stood. Its front windows were open, and in them were displayed blades of the highest quality. I saw swords, daggers, and spears, but also many strange weapons that I had never seen the like of. Too, I had never seen a smithy with someone standing guard, but there was one here, a large brute of a man with horribly scarred hands. "You have good taste," I told Mag, "but I think your eyes are larger than your purse. Sellswords such as us could not bring the custom a place like this demands." Mag did not appear to hear me. She only stepped towards the shop's door. As she approached, the guard barred her way and held up a hand. "Stay yourself," he said, his voice rumbling like an ocean wave. "What business do you have here?" "What sort of business do you expect?" said Mag. "I wish to buy a weapon." The guard eyed her up and down. "You are no customer of this place. Be gone." "You do not know how much coin I am carrying," countered Mag. "You could not carry enough coin on your person, and since you do not have a pack-horse behind you." "Friend," I said quickly, "you are a hired sword like us, are you not?" The guard's mouth twisted. "Not like you." I spread my hands wide, giving him a friendly smile. "Oh, not a mercenary, certainly. But we all have something in common. We are paid to fight. You have a greater appreciation for the art of battle than most people could imagine, as do we. And my friend here is special. I swear to you that you have never seen her like in combat." The guard arched an eyebrow as he looked down at Mag, who stood a good 2 heads shorter than he. "If you mean to intimidate me, you are not doing a good job." "Not at all," I said, "but when someone ascends to her lofty heights of skill, they gain a rarefied taste for weapons of war. You may be right, we may not have enough coin to afford your master's astonishing wares, but can you not understand a desire to simply see them? Let her at least have the dream of fighting with such tools of war, though they may be fit only for the nobility who pay our wages." His expression did not change a whit, and I thought my words had been for nothing, and, too, I feared that Mag might escalate matters, for that was a bad habit of hers in those days. But after a moment the guard drew aside, waving an admonishing finger at both of us. "Disturb nothing," he said. "Touch nothing, and do not approach my master if she does not speak to you first." "You have our word," I said, nodding my thanks and ushering Mag into the shop. "I could have taken him," Mag muttered, once we were safely away from the man. "I know you could have," I said, "but it might have put a damper on our experience here. Now you can peruse the weapons without worrying about constables showing up." It is... Oh, I got a host. And Streamlabs didn't tell me because I'm logged out. There it is. Hey, Dread.
Hey, Dread.
What's up, Gin Rights?
Hey, Gin Rights.
Cool, I thought I was seeing things when I saw the notice coming up saying you had started working. Nope. We're here. We're doing a late night. It is customary for shopkeepers to put their finest wares on display in the windows, using them to draw in customers, but I could hardly have said the weapons in the window were any better than the ones we found inside. It's up Dread morning. Every new blade I saw seemed to be the finest I had ever beheld until I saw the next one. I am and have always been an archer, first and foremost, but I know my way around a sword, and I found myself transfixed by those on display. They were made in the dull moon fashion, longer and heavier than those in Calenton, but that did not prevent me from appreciating their quality. After a moment I looked up and realized that Mag and I had become separated. I sought her out quickly, as I still did not trust her not to make trouble if anyone should bother her. I found her standing before a display of spears. The weapons were arranged in racks that held half a dozen each. These were no long infantry spears meant for fighting in formation, and which are usually much taller than the soldiers that wield them. These were Dulmish dueling spears. If you have never seen one, they can appear a bit strange. I thought I closed my email programs.
Un momento.
Oh my god.
Would you prefer me to put the new Sanderson ads on the same grid or make a new grid?
Same grid?
Okay.
They are usually only a little taller than the shoulder, just long enough to serve as a walking stick, not so long that they are burdensome for long journeys. Their spearheads are larger than those of infantry spears, and they have long edges so that they can be used to slice and cut, not just to pierce. There are smaller curved blades just behind the head, almost like a hilt that you can use to entrap and entangle the weapon of your opponent. I'd never seen anyone wield such a weapon before. After all, most of the battles I had seen had been formation fighting. It struck me as curious that Mag was so transfixed by the weapons, for I had had no inkling that she knew how to use them. Mag, I said, for she did not appear to have seen me. What is it? These spears, she muttered, and it sounded almost as if she was talking to herself. I almost remember. Remember what? She only shook her head, and then came a voice from close by, startling both of us out of our thoughts. It is rare to have someone lavish so much attention on my spears. Mag and I turned quickly. Before us stood the woman who I knew must be the master of this shop. She was of medium height, but as broad as a barn. Her arms, like any good blacksmith's, were thicker than my thighs, and her torso had several more layers of weight over thick muscles. The back of her hair was done up in a tail, but the front cascaded like the wings of a crow wrapped around her moon-shaped face. Over her shoulder I saw the door guard surveying us, his face stern but impassive. "Do we have the honor of addressing the owner of this fine establishment?" I said, speaking just loud enough that I hoped the guard could hear my courtesy. "You do," said the smith. "Smeta of the family Stollard is my name." "I'm Albern of the family Telfer," I told her, placing a hand over my heart, "and this is Mag." Smeta cocked her weapons. "Sell swords, I suppose. What brings you to my shop?" "Why, only the desire to gaze upon your incomparable wares," I said. "Flattering," said Smeta. "I'm not in the habit of entertaining those who wish to peruse and not to buy, but courteous words can go far in changing my mind. My minds, all of them, all of my minds can be changed." "I imagine you did much the same to Braunhill at the door, or he would not have let you in." "We impressed upon your noblest and most loyal servant," I said, projecting my voice in Braunhill's direction with all my might, "that our appreciation for your work was nearly limitless. Truly your purse must overflow with wealth from grateful patrons." "Only one patron, really," said Smeta. "King Lanolf of the family Valgoon. Once I secured his custom, it is rare to find anyone else who can match the coin my wares fetch." I had two curious sensations at the same time. I felt as though the walls were pressing in upon me, and at the same time it was as if I had shrunk to the size of a mouse, and the shop had become incomprehensibly vast. I gasped suddenly, realizing that I had forgotten to breathe for the space of several long heartbeats. "You are King Lanolf's armorer," I said, my voice a mouse's squeak. Mag had stopped paying attention to the conversation and was looking at the spears again. I smacked her hard between the shoulder blades, trying to get her to turn around. She ignored me. "I am one of his smiths," said Smeta. "He has others, and I rarely attempt armor. It is not my passion, and therefore my work is not as good as it could be. But when it comes to weapons, yes, I arm the king and all his kin and anyone else who catches his favor or fancy, and I am well rewarded for it." At once I dropped into a deep bow. I noticed that Mag still seemed to be paying no attention to what we were saying, and I smacked her again. It is our deepest honor to be in your presence. I can tell, said Smeta, eyeing Mag, who had not stirred despite my actions. May I ask why you are so... What do you call them, said Mag, turning suddenly and pointing at the spears. I have never... That is, I do not recall ever seeing spears like this before. They are rare, even here in Dulmoon, and I have seen them nowhere else, said Smeta. She stepped past Mag and lifted one of the spears from its rack, lowering it and running her fingers along its length. They are called spontoons, meant for a single fighter, not for soldiers in formation, but then you can tell that. Nobles today rarely seek them out, for they are not considered fashionable. Ooh. We've got a incorrect... single quote. There we go. Nobles today rarely seek them out, for they are not considered fashionable, which just goes to show you how useless fashion is. If two fighters of equal skill face each other, one with a sword and one with a spontoon, I would bet half my considerable fortune on the one with the spear every time. They are a weapon of Dulmoon, said Mag, as though she had not heard anything Smeta had said after that. They are, said Smeta. The skill of their making was passed to me by my master, whose family has dwelled here since the time of Roth. As I said, I have never seen them in one of the other kingdoms, and I have visited all of them. She cocked her head again and regarded Mag carefully. Would you like to feel it in your hands? Yes, said Mag at once. Mag, I said, are you sure that is wise? If you were to damage it in any way... Do not worry, said Smeta. I will not hold you accountable. There's a light in your friend's eyes, and I wish to see what it might illuminate. I have a small yard in back of my shop. Choose whichever spear you wish, and meet me there. She set off for the back of the building at once, leaving Mag alone to choose her spear in peace. But Mag hardly seemed to need the privacy. She scarcely glanced at the rack before selecting one of the spears. Its haft was somewhat thicker than the others, its head a bit broader and a bit shorter. Mostly I noticed that it looked to be the most expensive spear on the rack. You listening, Meg? Mag had that habit, too. Walking into any shop and choosing among its wares at random, she would inevitably gravitate towards the priciest item in the place.
Yeah. Is she written after you?
Do you know anybody like that?
Who's written that?
That was indeed a reference to myself.
Well, you're handsome, so you make up for it.
Oh, baby.
I'm lying. It's horrible. I'm just kidding.
Roasted by my own wife. But that thought fled my mind as Mag handled the spear. She tossed it lightly from hand to hand, and then she spun it on either side of her like a staff. The movement was natural and fluid. That was hardly a surprise, for I had seen Mag with all sorts of weaponry, and she was always formidable. But I could tell at once that this was different. The spear had become part of her almost from the moment she laid her hand upon it. Thunder did not crash in the sky, but it felt like it should have. A shaft of sunlight did not pierce through a high window to illuminate her, but it felt less like something that had not happened, and more like something that should have happened, but which the sky had forgotten about. Silently I followed her out the back door into the yard. Smeta waited there, and to my great shock she had thrown on a set of light padded armor, and in her hands was a blunted training spear of the same kind as Mag's. That looks good in your hands, said Smeta, nodding towards Mag's weapon. It feels familiar, said Mag. I thought you said you had never seen such a weapon before, said Smeta. Not that I remember, said Mag, yet holding this one feels like embracing an old friend. Smeta nodded slowly. I have seen such things before, though rarely. Come, let us spar and we shall see what you can do with it. A pit formed in my stomach. I am not sure that is wise, I said at once, stepping between the two of them. Mayhap you should let me face off against Mag. Thoughts raced through my mind of the unimaginable wrath we would bring down on ourselves if Mag were to injure the King of Dulmoon's personal bladesmith. Afraid she will hurt me, are you? Said Smeta, and she laughed. Do not be a fool. You know your friend better than I do, but even I know that blade will not kiss my skin unless she means it to, and she does not mean it to. Do you, girl? I swear I will do you no harm, said Mag solemnly, gripping the spear in both hands and taking a wide stance. Then she smirked. No lasting harm, that is. That is the spirit, said Smeta, grinning. Now, let me see what you can... And then suddenly she was on her back, the tip of Mag's spear a finger's breadth away from her throat. "What?" gasped Smeta. Her face scrunched up, for all the world as though she was searching for a distant memory. "You tripped me." "Yes," said Mag. She put up her spear and lowered a hand to help Smeta rise. "Your reaction almost saved you, but it was just a tad too slow." "A tad?" said Smeta, frowning. "I did not even know what had happened until it was done." "Is the spear all right?" I said, leaning forwards and peering at it. "You stop that," said Smeta, glaring at me and holding up a finger like a grandmother scolding her progeny. "No warrior can fight while worrying about the state of the blade in their hands." "It's a great scene, right? This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole book." "No matter a weapon's value, no matter its heritage, when you fight with it, it has only one purpose, to be a tool with which you enact your will." She turned back to Mag. "Ah! Missing a quotation mark." To be a tool with which you enact your will. She turned back to Mag. "If you would indulge me, I would like to try attacking you and see how you defend yourself. One of the great strengths of a spontoon is its use for protection as well as for aggression." "Of course," said Mag, "whenever you wish." "First," said Smeta, going to the side of the yard. From the wall she pulled a battered practice shield, tossing it to Mag. "Use that. It is imperfectly balanced, but it should serve for this purpose." Mag began to slip her left arm through the straps, and Smeta struck before she was finished. But even the moment's distraction did not matter. Mag's shield was like a wall guarding her from harm, and wherever it could not protect her, the haft of the spear came in to block Smeta's swipes and turn her jabs. Mag danced around Smeta's every blow, barely even stepping back to avoid them. I felt then, as I would go on to feel many, many times, the sheer awe of seeing Mag with that spear in her hand. She had already been a peerless warrior in my estimation. But in that moment, though I did not quite know it, she was taking... What?
Sorry.
Her first... What?
I was talking out loud to myself.
She was taking her first steps on the road that would turn her into a legend. After a short while of sparring, Mag finally turned the tables. Rather than blocking Smeta's thrust, she caught the spear between her own and the shield, and then twisted to flip it out of Smeta's hands. Finally, almost as an afterthought, she flipped the spear around and jabbed the butt of it hard into Smeta's belly. All Smeta's breath left her in a rush, and she fell on her rear on the sandy yard. "My apologies," said Mag. Instinct took over. "You understand, of course." "Of course," said Smeta ruefully, holding up a hand for Mag to help her again. "Well, that settles it. You have to buy that spear." "What?" I said. "She cannot possibly afford it. You said your prices..." "Are considerable," said Smeta, "and I cannot give you the spear for free. I have a reputation to uphold, and no warrior values a weapon they did not pay for, in gold or in blood." "I would value this spear," said Mag fervently. Smeta grinned. "I imagine that is true. It belongs with you, and you with it. Therefore I will let you buy it for 200 of weights." Even as my guts turned a somersault, Mag said, "Done." "Mag," I said, "that is more than either of us will earn in a year. If you paid for nothing else, if you avoided all costs for... I may be green, but hardly any more so than you. I know full well what I am doing." Mag sighed and removed her shield, then held the spear out to Smeta. "I will return when I can. Please, hold it for me." "I will hold it, but not for long," said Smeta. "Before I can allow you to take it, it must be enchanted." Behind Smeta's back, I threw my hands into the air and tried to mouth "No" to Mag. Enchantment was a service provided only by wizards trained at the academy, and it was fantastically expensive, beyond the reckoning of anyone but royalty. Mag did not even glance at me, but only nodded at Smeta. "And how much will that be?" said Mag. Smeta waved a hand. "The enchantments are simple. They will protect the blade from wear and keep the haft from breaking. The spear will not be wreathed in magical flame or anything so ridiculous. I have a shipment bound for the academy next week already, and I will include the spear with the rest of them for the same cost." I froze, my hands in midair where I had been trying to gesture to Mag that she should abandon this foolish idea. Now I cocked my head. 200 of weights, 200 of weights. 200 of weights was already a bargain, even if Mag could not afford it, but with enchantment and no extra charge, that changed the nature of the deal considerably. I doubted if I could have resisted such an offer, and I knew Mag would never be able to. Done and done, said Mag. I imagine I can write you here as I acquire the funds I will need before I can retrieve the spear. I told you already I will not hold the spear that long, said Smeta. You two are with the silver stirrups, yes? They will be in Dulmoon for at least another half year. Before you leave the kingdom, come and retrieve the spear. You can send me your payment later, or even in parts as you are paid. Still behind Smeta's back, I grabbed great fistfuls of my own hair, my face filled with delight as I looked at Mag. For her part, she seemed utterly thunderstruck, and it was a moment before she spoke. That is generous, said Mag. I can afford to be generous, said Smeta. I do not know if you have heard, but I serve King Lanolf. I trust you to send the payment when you can. Only a great fool would try to cheat the king's own bladesmith, and you are not a great fool. That's like a paraphrase from Princess Bride, just in case anybody likes hearing about little references. Only a great fool would... what is it? Only a great fool would drink the goblet that was given to him. I am not a great fool, and so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me. You still extend a great deal of trust, said Mag. Where a moment ago she had sounded so self-assured that it annoyed me, now she seemed full of doubt. Right? Now she seemed full of doubt. I almost thought she would refuse the deal. The spear could be lost, or I could die in... Ha! barked Smeta, a single shout of laughter that I suspected was meant more to shut Mag up than to express mirth. Girl, I just fought you. You dying before you're able to pay me? You jest, and poorly. Mag seemed at last to be overwhelmed. She sank to one knee in the sand of the yard and bowed her head toward Smeta. Thank you, she said softly. You do me a far greater honor than I deserve, and I will not forget it. I expect you shall not, said Smeta, but you honor me as well. Any craftsman has only one wish, to see their creations used well. King Lanolf and his kin are fine warriors, but when was the last time they went to war? The blades I make for them languish in training yards, or in fine halls where they are used as decoration. Pah! When you take this spear from me, you will take it and use it the way it was meant to be used. I could ask for nothing more. Mag knelt there for a moment, silent, looking at the spear in her hand. In her eyes was some trouble or some deep thought, at which I could not begin to guess, but it seemed clear the spear was more than a weapon to her. I almost remember, she had said before, when I first found her looking at it. But remembered what? We left the shop soon after, and 2 months later we returned for the spear. Mag carried it ever afterwards, and it became part of her legend. She never told me what she had almost remembered. Not for many, many long years, anyway. Chapter 16. After leaving Northwood, we rode into the great rocks together, traveling up the same path I had used to come down out of them. It had taken me 6 days when I rode with Lorne. Now we took the journey more slowly, for I was still tender from the battle. I slept long each night, setting camp as soon as night fell, and often rising hours before the sun. It was 10 days before Mag and I got very deep into the mountains. Sorry, one of my nails is filthy and it is bothering me. Little too much peanut gallery over there tonight.
Sorry.
You should be.
I'll try to be better.
My wife is a bad person, Stream.
I am not a bad person.
She's a very bad person.
I'm a good person.
I'm a good person, yes, it's true. I'm a good person, better than you.
I'm a good person, can't you see? Doctors Without Borders don't have shit on me.
I'm a good person all over the place.
I come my good right into your face.
I didn't think you were going to say that on stream, but
Never.
you did it. You did it. You did the thing. We've been going for 25 minutes, and I forgot to set a timer, so 20 minutes left. Meg is wonderful, and I know it. She's amazing. T-Ville Terror.
Oh, hey T-Ville Terror. Thank you.
It surprised me how easily we both fell into old routines. That's how I'm going to narrate the audiobooks, Meg. Didn't I talk to you about that?
No.
There are little tricks one learns after years spent on campaign trails. The best way to unfurl and repack a bedroll, the tricks of choosing a campsite, the skill of falling asleep quickly and waking up with speed. It came somewhat more easily to me, for I had ridden the long trail just a few weeks ago, guiding Lauren through the mountains. But though Mag had not left Northwood in years, she picked up our routine just as quickly as I had. Though we rode as fast as we could with my tender condition, we kept a wary eye out in case of attack. Yet we saw no sign of the shades nor of any other creatures, save for an occasional rabbit or game bird fit for hunting. The satyrs and harpies, if any remained, avoided us entirely. In the middle of the third day, we came to the shade stronghold in the mountains. Then, for the first time, I ordered Mag to slow. We approached the fortress slowly and with stealth. If the shades were to stop anywhere in the great rocks, it would be here. Leaving the horses behind us, we crawled up a steep slope that brought us to a lesser peak overlooking the fortress. We crawled on our bellies for the last few paces, poking our heads over the edge of the land to peer down. There it sat, the stronghold about which I now had so many evil memories. It crouched on a rock platform like a black malicious spider. There was a chasm... One thing that I'm trying to, and not in like every single case, but I'm trying to parse out of my language using the word black as a synonym for evil for obvious reasons. It crouched on a rock platform like a lurking, malicious spider. There was a chasm below its eastern wall, and a stone bridge reached across the gap. It was mayhap 7 paces wide and had only low stone walls for railings. It was from that bridge that Jordell had fallen to his doom, though he brought a great foe into the darkness with him. Barely visible from where we lay in the grass, I could see the long stone ramp that led down from the stronghold's west wall, falling away to the valley far below. The stronghold itself, however, looked empty. I saw no signs of motion within, nor was there any indication that anyone had been there recently. From what I could see, it looked as though the shades had passed straight through the fortress without stopping. "No one there," said Mag. "Not that we can see," I said. "We must still be cautious." When have I ever been incautious? Always. Every time. Everywhere. They had two... There's so many friggin'... Oh. I know it sounds like fucking egotistical, but there's like a lot of real good shit in this book. I'm very happy with it. They had too many soldiers for them to... They had too many soldiers for them all to be hiding within those walls, she said, ignoring my answer. Not even if all of them were clustered together and standing as close as lovers. Yet they may have left behind a rear guard, I said. I do not mean to say we have to inspect the whole fortress, but when we pass through it, let us be careful. She crawled back down the slope and away from the ridge. I followed her back to the horses, and together we rode out across the narrow stone bridge towards the stronghold. I paused for a moment in the middle of the span, looking at the low stone wall that rimmed it. Zane had used... Did you peanut gallery?
I was sneezing.
Mm-hmm. Zane had used fire... What? No, what? I have attention on it now. Okay. Zane had used fire to burn words into the stone there, a eulogy for Jordell, but Mag did not notice, and she pressed on without stopping. Oh, shoot, I forgot to put up Facebook chat. Anyone in Facebook? No. Okay. Hey, what's up, that ninja? Pat yourself on the back, because it's 2018, and being proud of your accomplishments is in. Agreed! Fuck yeah. Right, babe?
Right, babe.
Why do I feel like you're being sarcastic?
I have no idea why you're saying this all of a sudden.
That ninja said it in chat.
Oh.
You would know that if you were watching stream.
I'm...
You have a second screen to your left. You could put the stream up there so you could watch chat. But I guess it's not that important.
You're not...
I love working with my wife. It's amazing. But Mag did not notice, and she pressed on without stopping. I hurried to catch up with her. Jin Wright says, "You two are awesome. We need more peanut gallery."
You heard him, babe.
Yep. All right. I just rimmed. That was it.
Rimmed?
Never mind.
Oh, low stone wall that rimmed it. I get it. No, I get it. That's cute.
Okay.
I'm not changing it. But I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I hurried to catch up with her. The eastern gate stood open, as did the western gate on the other side. The wide courtyard within the walls was just as empty as it had appeared from the outside. The only thing to be found was some hay scattered about the place, floating and scraping along the ground in the mountain wind. Mag stopped. Oh my God, Lucas is watching on Facebook.
Lucas who?
Lucas from L.A. Lucas, who we used to hang out with all the time.
Oh, hey.
I know, long ass time no talk. Holy crap. How it's going? Welcome. The eastern gate stood open, as did the western gate on the other side. The wide courtyard within the walls was just as empty as it had appeared from the outside. Hey, hey. The only thing to be found was some hay scattered about the place, floating and scraping along the ground in the mountain wind. Mag stopped in the middle of the yard and dismounted. I did the same. She looked about, brows raised. A good fortress, she said. The walls are strong, yet not infallible, I said. She said. No walls are infallible. No enemy beyond reach. I grinned. Do you speak of the shades or the weremage? Mag smirked. There appears to be no one here. We should ride on. But hold a moment. You have a loose strap. She stepped up, fiddling with my saddle. I stared at her. My straps were tight, and we both knew it. Once she drew close, she spoke in a low voice. There are satyrs watching us, on the rocky slopes above the walls. Fetch something from my saddlebags. It will give you an excuse to look. I went to the other side of her horse and unbuckled one of the pouches hanging from the saddle. My eyes slid up the side of the mountain that towered over us. Tiny flashes of movement caught my gaze as satyrs ducked back out of sight. I took out a water skin and brought it back to Mag. There are several of them, I said, handing her the water skin, but they do not seem interested in troubling us. Likely they are only keeping watch. We are past the border of their homeland, after all. Mag took a small swig of water and handed it to me. As I drank, she murmured, They will have seen where the shades went. We should ask them. I pursed my lips and put the stopper back in the water skin. Agreed, but try not to kill them, will you? She arched an eyebrow. I thought they gave you a great deal of trouble when last you came this way. They did, at the orders of their elders, I said, and their elders are under the sway of another. The shades? Whoever leads the shades, I said. The satyrs spoke of a lord. Satyrs have no lords. No, they do not. To hear them speak of one worried me more than anything else we found in these mountains. That is little concern of ours now, but let us get our hands on one of them and we will have some answers about the weremage. I finished pretending to dig through her saddlebags and returned to my horse, and I will have them answer for other things as well. We mounted again and rode through the western gate down the long stone ramp into the valley. I found no good excuse. All right, later, Lucas. Thanks so much for dropping by, dude. Good to see you. I found no good excuse to look back at the satyrs shadowing us, but every so often I would hear the soft clatter of hooves on the rocks high above. They were still there. I knew we had to lure them into open lands as far from any slopes as possible. Satyrs can nearly fly up a mountainside, and they could rain arrows down on us. But on open ground they were no more nimble than a human. Only there would we have any chance of taking one of them alive. To tell the truth, and despite my words to Mag, I found myself filled with anger that almost defied reason. Yes, the satyrs had only acted upon the directions of their leaders, but they had still nearly gotten me killed, along with all of my friends. That was not easy to forgive, though I was trying. After all, satyrs are not quite beasts, but neither are they quite human. Not far from the bottom of the stone ramp was a small cluster of trees, a little wood that bent and huddled over the thin stream that ran through the middle of the valley. I led Mag towards it. The satyrs would think we were merely watering ourselves and the horses, but if they tried to approach us among the trees, we would be able to take them by surprise. Though it was not very late in the day, the sun had already hidden itself behind the tips of the western mountains above. Dismounting, we ducked in among the shadows of the trunks, quickly losing ourselves among the trees. Once we were a good distance in, I stopped Mag and drew her against the side of an old beech tree. Together we looked back in the direction we had come. There were the satyrs. They were making an attempt at stealth, but they were not used to it on such open terrain. They approached the trees warily, darting between brush and rocks with their awkward, loping gait. I counted 6 of them, not an inconsiderable group, but against Mag and me they stood little chance. Let us tether the horses, I said. We do not want them to run off during the fight. The beasts were already nickering nervously, for the satyrs had approached from upwind. My gelding eyed me as though trying to plan the right time to bolt. We lashed the horses to a tree deeper in the wood and then returned to the beech tree. The satyrs were creeping between the trunks now, heads darting nervously back and forth in search of us. I had my bow in hand, and Mag had her spear and shield. We waited in total silence, listening as the creatures came closer. Mag nudged me with her spear, and we sprang. I fired 2 arrows in quick succession. One satyr went down with a shaft in its leg, another with fletching stuck out of its arm. Mag swung her spear in an arc, slamming the flat side of the spearhead into the temple of a third. It fell with a pathetic bleat. The other creatures screamed in fear, but they did not flee. They leaped towards us, flailing with clubs and short stone axes. I got off one more shot, and another satyr fell with an arrow in its shoulder. Then they were too close, and I had to draw my sword. But there were only 2 left, and Mag and I made quick work of them. Mag blocked one blow with her shield before piercing her foe's thigh with her spear. I backed up step by step, warding off my foe's club with wide sweeps of my sword, until Mag came around behind her and slammed her shield into the back of the creature's head. It fell to the ground, senseless. Looking up, I saw the other satyrs fleeing for their lives. The ones with leg wounds limped away, while the ones with maimed arms fled in great bounding leaps. The first satyr Mag had downed had regained its senses, and it stumbled out of the woods, swaying as if drunk. That left only the creature on the ground before us now. "Rope," said Mag. I nodded and went to my gelding, fetching a coil from one of the saddlebags. Chapter 17. Long before the satyr awoke, we had her bound to a tree a few paces from the river. We had set up a small campsite for the night. When the sun fell, we started a small fire. I knew its light... Oh, how much do I care about that? A little bit. Too many smalls, too close together. Huh? This is going to be a pain in the ass, isn't it? We had set up a campsite for the night. When the sun fell, we started a small fire. I knew its light might be visible through the trees, but that worried me little. The satyrs were few in this part of the mountains, and they seemed to be even fewer since the shades had passed through. After a while, our captive stirred, her head lolling back and forth before snapping up. One of her horns had a large chip near the top of its curve. She bleated angrily at us, but she winced with pain even as she did it. "Hello," I said. "We have some questions." "Die, human," hissed the satyr. "No, I'm afraid that is not the answer we are looking for," I said. "A weremage passed through these mountains, leading the humans who fled west from Northwood. What do you know of her?" The satyr looked away. "I know nothing of what you speak." "Come now," I said. "You speak the human tongue well. That tells me you are wise. Surely you have heard which way she and her friends went." "I know better than to speak to you." The satyr tried to spit at me, but the gobbet fell short, landing on the ground by my feet. "Let us start with something simpler," I said. "What is your name?" She glared at me and said nothing. "I shall tell you ours if you wish," I said. "This is Mag, and I am Alburn of the family Telfer." She only scowled harder. "I know your name, human. You tricked Tiglak. You made him betray us." "I did no such thing," I replied. "I spared Tiglak's life in exchange for safe passage." "He had no right," said the satyr. "The elders punished him for his cowardice." That made me angry. I had known Tiglak for a long time. Humans and satyrs will never be friends, I fear, but I respected him, and I like to think he respected me. "He was both brave and honorable," I said. "Yet he knew I could kill him if I wished, and he hoped his elders might be more merciful. He could have fled into the mountains in shame, but he returned courageously and faced their judgment. It is not my fault, nor his, that they were cruel in that judgment. I ask again, what is your name?" She tossed her head, but some of the fury in her eyes had died. I guessed that she, too, thought better of Tiglak than she was trying to lead us to believe. "Greto," she said at last. "Greto," I said. Do you see? That was not so hard." "Now, Greto," said Mag, "as we have said, we require more answers. What can you tell us about the weremage?" Greto's eyes burned with fury. "Your ugly human words are meaningless." "Ah, I forgot," I said. "A weremage is a shape-changer, a human wizard who can take other forms." "Pah," said Greto. "Your wizards are nothing to us. I know nothing of any skin-shifter." "What of the shades?" said Mag. "Which way did they go?" Greto's dumbfounded look was too perfect to be false. "The what?" "The humans, who wear blue and gray," I said. "They are called shades, and they pass through the mountains. Where did they go?" A hunted look came over Greto's face, and she dropped her gaze to the ground. "I do not know." "You are an awful liar," observed Mag. She lifted her spear and placed the tip gently on Greto's shoulder. "I thought we were past the point where you would try to deceive us." Another snarl broke out on Greto's face, but she relented. They went north through the mountains. We did not follow them past the next bend in the valley floor, but a small party of them left the others. And went where? I said. West, towards our home, said Greto. Mag and I tensed in the same instant. Are they still there? Said Mag. Are they there now? I've been away for several days, said Greto, sounding like nothing so much as a plaintive child. I do not know. Was there a woman with them? Said Mag. Skin the color of a satyr horn and black braided hair. Greto sneered. All humans look like humans to Mag. Faster than blinking, Mag turned the spear so the edge of it was pressed to Greto's throat. Yes, cried Greto. Yes, the woman went west, into our lands. Why would she go there? I asked. I know from experience that you are not kind to trespassers. Sometimes the shades, they visit our elders. They speak with them, delivering messages and directions from the Lord. Is that where the were-mage is going? I do not know. Greto's eyes widened as Mag pushed the spear point forwards, just a hair. I do not know, I swear it. She may be, she bleated. Mag dropped the spear point to the ground. Greto relaxed for a moment. My apologies, said Mag. Greto looked confused until Mag brought the butt of the spear spinning around and slammed it into the satyr's face. Her head crashed back against the tree with a thud and then lolled forwards. West, I said. Yes, said Mag. The western mountains are deep in satyr territory, in the very heart of their home. Mag shrugged. We have already said we will march into the middle of the Shades' forces if need be. The satyrs cannot be worse. They are not more fearsome, I said with a sigh, but neither do they bear as much blame as the Shades for what has befallen us. I hope you will bear that in mind. Her expression softened. Of course I will. And I do not think they bear any great love for our enemies. If we remove the Shades from their homeland, they may even be grateful. I gave a short, barking laugh. You have much to learn about satyrs. If the were-mage aims to speak with them, she will seek out their elders. Humans are forbidden from even seeing elders on pain of death. Yet it seems the Shades visit them on occasion. Traditions may change, I said with a shrug, yet I doubt we will be afforded the same courtesy. We should be ready for a fight. She grinned. Have you ever known me to be otherwise? We should rest now and set off early tomorrow. I will take the first watch. She went to the edge of the camp and sat on a low, moss-covered rock there. I went to unfurl my bedroll, trepidation in my heart. Mag was a peerless warrior, but we meant to march straight into the homes of creatures who had little love for us. I feared that if things went horribly wrong, even Mag's considerable skills might not be enough to keep her alive. And if the uncut lady could not escape her doom, what hope did I have to save her? Burm, burm, burm. Chapter 18. The next day, Kaida rode west out of the Great Rocks with her party of 6 shades. In the mountain's western foothills, she stopped her horse and turned to the soldiers accompanying her. And now we part, she said. Once you have finished with the satyrs, return to the Watcher. You should find Tagada there, for Rogan will be in Dorsey by now. Very well, said Urdu, his beard twitching as he frowned. And can you make the journey to Lanshui unaided? You need not worry for me, said Kaida. Yet I may if I wish. Pfft, said Urdu. That demon woman from Northwood is chasing you, not us. I can care for myself, said Kaida. I hope that is true, said Urtu. He extended a hand. Kaida grasped his wrist firmly, and they shook. Farewell until we meet again. Until life ends. Until life ends. He turned and rode away, and the rest of the Shades accompanied him. Kaida did not ride on, but sat watching them for a moment. She had joined the Shades many years ago. She loved Rogan as he loved her, but Rogan's affection extended to all who wore the deathly livery. The deathly livery. I was so happy when I thought that up. And in that he was different from Kaida. The Shadeborn, like Tagada and Triskin Deathkeep were one thing, but Kaida could never muster any great love for the rank-and-file soldiers like the ones riding away now, half of whom served for love of coin and not from belief. Yet Urtu believed. Yet Kaida disdained him, and she did not know why. She sighed as the last blue cloak vanished around a fold in the land. Turning her horse, she struck out for Lanshui. She had to reach it before nightfall or she would lose her horse. Lanshui is no great burg, a mere pinpoint on a map compared to Bertram farther west, and not even so big as Northwood used to be. It sits near the place where the Blackwind River comes tumbling out of the Great Rocks. There are many beautiful falls in that area, and gives Lanshui a chilled and often misted air, which is excellent for tales and for atmosphere, but horrible for wooden buildings, which often warp and rot. Rich as a carpenter in Lanshui was once a saying in those parts, and it might still be. Despite its proximity to Bertram, which is the second largest city in Dorsey and was once that kingdom's capital, Lanshui is a quiet, uneventful place, for it is bordered on the west by a sharp and insurmountable spur in the land, as though the Great Rocks were kicking up one last time before letting the earth lie flat. That spur cannot be traveled across, but must be ridden around, and that adds half a week to any journey between Lanshui and the King's Road. In other words, it is the perfect sort of town for one to go when they wish to avoid being found. Kaida approached in the afternoon, careful to wait out of sight in a small wood just visible from the town. Soon a young man, hardly more than a boy, came to her amid the trees. He had a sallow face and bulging eyes. "You are she?" "If by she you mean a servant of our father, then yes," said Kaida. "Are you not supposed to ask me for the password?" He avoided her gaze. "I forgot it." All right, taking a quick break. Gonna refresh my coffee, and then I will be back. Well, hello again, stream.
Strem.
Say hi to the chew. To the chewy chem. To the chema. Yes, I said your name. No, off. Off. Oh, Dragomir, I tried to be all like quiet and stuff when I came back on stream. I tried to ease into it. If by she you mean a servant of our father, then yes, said Kaita. Are you not supposed to ask me for a password? He avoided her gaze. I forgot it. Fool, spat Kaita. What if I were one of our enemies? You still do not know that I am not. We do not play at some child's game. Of course, mumbled the boy. I am sorry. Her nostrils flared. Sorry would not save them from the king's law if it sniffed them out in this town. I care little for your apologies. Can you get me within the walls? Yeah, that happens to a number of people. The boy ducked his head. I can. No one will see you. My name is Pantu, by the way. I do not remember asking for your name. Get moving. He took the reins of her horse and set off, and Kaita followed. First he took her to a part of the eastern wall that was out of sight of any gate, and then he led her along it until they reached the south entrance. No guard stood there to watch them enter. That was simple, said Kaita. I could have done it myself. The constables and guards are much preoccupied during the day, said Pantu. His voice grew hushed as he continued, and besides, only the night is dangerous now. Kaita gave a grim smile at that. They moved wordlessly after that. They moved wordlessly after that, passing through the streets until they reached an old, abandoned-looking building. I'm going to adjust that. Kaita gave a grim smile. They moved wordlessly after that, passing through the streets until they reached an old, abandoned-looking building near the center of the town. A woman came to take their horses without having to be called. After they made sure nobody was nearby to see, Kaita followed Pantu into the house, where they both threw back their hoods. Yes, very true, Jin writes. The front room was wide and low, and the back wall was set a stone hearth with no fire, and around it sat 3 people in thick wooden chairs. They turned as one to see Kaita and her companion standing in the doorway, and all 3 of them shot to their feet at once. One of them, a brawny woman with her gray hair in a braid, took a step forwards and looked at Kaita in bewilderment. Kaita, she said, at last. Happy to see me, Delic? Said Kaita, giving her a wry smile. Always. Delic came and embraced her. Ever since we received word you were coming, I have eagerly awaited your arrival. Some of us, including myself, wanted very much to join the rest of you in Northwood. There were more than enough of us to do what needed to be done, said Kaita. Now let me see how you have progressed in your work for our father. Delic nodded and led her deeper into the house. In the back room she opened the secret door, revealing a dank stone staircase leading deep into the earth. Dank. After Delic lit a torch, Kaita followed her down the steps. Delic held the torch high as they descended, and Kaita kept a hand on the wall to steady herself. The stone beneath her feet was slippery. A wide chamber opened up before them. The walls had been formed by alchemists and were lined with smooth ridges. High above, the wooden ceiling looked incredibly fragile compared to the thick rock walls, and between the boards minute shafts of sunlight pierced the shadows, occasionally blocked as someone above walked across them. But Kaita's gaze was drawn immediately to the massive cauldron in the center of the room. It was more than 2 paces across and shallow, and a black liquid bubbled within it, hardly illuminated by the many torches on the walls. 3 shades stood in the room, tending the cauldron nervously, careful not to touch it. They looked briefly up at the newcomers, but when Delic gave them a nod, they returned to their tasks. Kaita could feel the power emanating from the room. The smell was heady, powerful, intoxicating, even a bit overwhelming. For an instant she had a mad desire to cup her hands and drink of the liquid. The magic within her bristled, sensing the energy that saturated the air. It filled her with exhilaration, anxiety, and anger in equal measure. She knelt to look beneath the cauldron. The flames were well tended and did not quite reach the iron bottom of the cauldron. She could feel the vicious heat of them, though they were small, and she was well over a pace away. Standing, she turned to Delic. "You're being wary not to stoke the flames too high?" "Of course," said Delic. "And it is having the desired effect?" Delic gave a grim smile and tossed her grey braid back over her shoulder. "Indeed, it is far more effective than we had dreamed it would be." "Very well," said Kaita. "Let us return upstairs. I must speak with you privately." Delic took her back up into the house, and then she climbed another staircase to take her to the second floor. The largest bedroom had a small antechamber, and within it were 2 chairs and a small table with some wine. Delic poured them both a cup and gestured for Kaita to sit. "Well," she said, "ever since I knew you were coming, I have wondered what this was all about." "I am being pursued," said Kaita, "by a woman from Northwood named Mag, and her companion, whose name is Albert." "Pursued?" said Delic, arching an eyebrow. "I imagine you must not want them dead, then, or you would have used your magic." "I want them dead more than you can believe," thought Kaita, but she nodded as though Delic had the right of it. "I am leading them home." Delic went very still, and her eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes," said Kaita, "and I need them to know that that is where I am running to. But, Delic, they must not learn about anything else the Shades are doing here. Albert is a master tracker, and I came through the mountains with a party of 6 horse. He will have a trail leading him to Lan Shui, but I need one of your people to give them the next part of the trail." Delic pursed her lips, running a finger along the edge of her wine cup. "Interesting. There are a few here who I can trust to—" Kaita stopped her by putting a hand on her arm. "That might not be wise. This woman, Mag," she almost winced as she remembered the pain of Mag's strikes. "She is a killer. Whoever gives her this information could very well die." Delic's mouth twisted. "Say no more, then. I will send that boy Pantu, the one who brought you into the city today. He knows nothing of the underground chamber, and he is little more than a nuisance anyway. Completely useless." That drew a small smile from Kaita. This was one reason she and Delic got along so well. Delic understood that, whatever Rogan might say, not everyone was worthy, not everyone was useful. Rogan would not approve of such a course of action, but he would never know. "Excellent," said Kaita. "I will remain here to ensure everything goes well." Delic drained the rest of her wine and stood. "It will. And now let me get you arranged in a chamber. I imagine you could use a long sleep." As if the words were a spell, exhaustion came crashing down on Kaita. She had been on the road for a week and had not had a proper rest since the Battle of Northwood. "I could," said Kaita, getting to her feet. "Thank you, Delic." "All is well," she thought, as Delic led her to a small bedchamber and she began to undress herself. "Come to me, my prey. Find me in Lan Shui." Chapter 19. The next morning...
Can you look at this wording real fast? I just wanted to do one original copy for Tales of the Wanderer. Should I start with that, or should I just say, do you want to meet Underrealm's greatest warrior? Okay. Thank you. I love you.
Loving you.
Because you're beautiful.
Dootin' dootin' doo. Chapter 19. The next morning we released Greto. Before we loosened the rope that held her to the tree, I fixed her with a hard look. "We will release you now," I told her. "You are free to go your own way as long as you leave us alone. We will not trouble you again, and I hope we can expect the same courtesy." She merely spat in response. At least she did not seem to be aiming for me this time. "I thought you might say something like that," I told her, "but before you decide to run home and tell your clan what transpired here today, I would bid you to remember Tiglac. He, too, thought he could rely on the mercy of your elders." Her eyes filled with fear at that, and I was satisfied. I untied her, and she bounded away south, in the same direction her fellows had run after our fight the day before. "Do you really think she will leave us be?" said Mag. "I know no reason why she should not," I replied. "She may stalk us, as she did before, but she will only see us heading west, and she knows we are chasing the weremage. She would never guess that we mean to find the satyr elders and threaten them, because, of course, that is an incredibly idiotic course of action." Mag gave an easy smile and began to fetch food to break our fast. "Then we will have the element of surprise." I laughed and helped her prepare the meal. As we ate, I began to form a plan. I had some vague idea of where the satyrs were. Many treks through the mountains had brought me to their borders, so I knew the edges of the lands at least. Most of their homes were in the western end of the mountain range. They had dwellings in the caves there, which they had connected with a series of tunnels. Hey, morning, Lauren!
Hi, Lauren.
So that they could travel through the mountains with relative ease. But satyrs did not naturally dwell within the earth, except when they denned to birth and raise their children. More often they were to be found in the open air, leaping from slope to slope and across all the flatlands along the valley. Therefore I guided Mag west, across the valley floor and into the mountains on the other side. There were no roads or paths in this part of the mountains, but we did not... There were no roads or paths in this part of the mountains, but we did not need them. Lauren says, "Hey, Meg." The trail of the shades was plain before us. Hundreds of feet had trampled the ground so that it was churned and muddy, like a farmer's field laid open and ready for fresh planting. Sometimes groups of boot prints would break off from the rest, turning north or south and away from the main march. And then on the second day, the army's tracks turned and headed north, deep into the mountains. But the tracks of a smaller party carried on west from the spot. They were few, mayhap a half dozen, no more. We stopped on the spot and ate our midday meal, enjoying the warm sun above, and then pressed on as soon as we had finished. I continued to lead Mag west until we came to the end of the valley and the beginning of the mountains again. There we found a wide road leading up into the peaks. It was bordered by perilous drops in places, but wide and firm enough to provide no great danger. I had never traveled this road before, but in past years I had espied it from afar. I guessed that it was no construct of some long-gone king, as the Shade stronghold had been. This track was not paved at all, but had been worn into the ground by many feet, or, more likely, many hooves. It looked like an animal track that had been adopted by the satyrs, who would not have cared how steep it was or how high the drops on the side. It's only 1:45, Lauren. It's not that late here. Although I am planning on staying up pretty late. I wasn't able to get any writing done today because I had so much stuff to do in preparation for the upcoming convention that I just was like, fuck it, I need to stay up a little bit late tonight and keep going on the proofread because we haven't been able to order our hardcover copies of Bloodlust yet. So it's a pretty urgent priority for us. It branched often, but I always led Mag on the most well-worn routes. Those I hoped would take us to the heart of the satyrs' domain. The side tracks would likely lead to smaller camps and settlements throughout the mountains, or mayhap even into the heart of the cave system the satyrs had built. The horses did not seem to enjoy the journey much. They had some difficulty on the steeper parts of the road, and on occasion I had to find another way around, a gentler slope that would allow us to circle back to the main path. I should have been reassured by the absence of any satyrs watching us, but I found myself growing more and more perturbed as we pressed on. We had passed the borders of their lands already. All my experience told me they should have attacked us long ago, but there was no sign of them. I could not fathom it, though I spent much thought on it during the day when we rode and during the night when I stood watch. I could understand if the bulk of them had retreated farther into their caves and mountains when the shades had passed this way, but their patrols should have increased. Instead, they had vanished entirely. It was the third day after we had left the valley floor that I finally spotted signs of the satyrs again. We came around a bend in the path to find ourselves suddenly standing in plain view of one of their villages. It was little more than a glorified camp with a few huts. Not too confusing for me since some of their game streams have run quite late. Yes, when I do play the games, I play late. It was Oh, baby.
What?
I don't get to do a 24-hour game stream for the release of the book.
You scheduled the book.
A week after the con. The Friday after the con.
Now the time to talk about it. Get back to work.
So that's a yes?
I am not saying yes.
It was little more than a glorified camp with a few huts built of wood and mud, along with caves in the mountainside where I guessed most of them dwelled. Several campfires could be seen on the ground outside the dwellings, but none of them were lit. The place had been abandoned. "Where did they go?" said Mag. "I wish I knew," I said. "Let us hope they are only hiding from the shades." We looked through the huts and poked our heads into the caves. The satyrs were not hiding. They had abandoned their homes. All their supplies and tools were gone. Though that seemed an ominous sign, it actually eased my mind somewhat. It meant they had had time to plan their departure and had not been driven to flee in terror. I had harbored half-formed fears of some great force sweeping through the mountains, driving these creatures before it. But whatever had prompted them to go, they had had some forewarning. Still, I did not feel comfortable making camp in their village, so we found a flat shelf not much farther along on which to stay the night. I was especially dour as we laid out our bedrolls that evening, and Mag could not help but notice. "Your frown will freeze on your face soon," she remarked. "I like the look of things less and less the farther we go," I said. "Yet our way has been easy so far. Easy, yet troubling. Do you not wonder what drove all the satyrs out of this region?" She shrugged. "You are the guide, not I." I am the guide, I grumbled, and a wise woman listens to her guide when he says something is wrong. Mag chuckled at that. Then she pointed over her head at the horses. What are you going to name your gelding, by the by? Bad luck cannot be far off if you continue to ride him nameless. You think I'm not already overwhelmed with bad luck? I am by your side, am I not? A rock came flying, landing right between my legs. I gasped and rolled on my side, clutching myself as I fought a wave of nausea. You've not chosen a name, then? She said innocently. Come, Alburn, you know you tempt fate. Dorsian superstition, I wheezed. If you have not noticed, we are in Dorsey, or near enough to it, she retorted. Some guide you are, forgetting what kingdom you are in. But games is what I expected of late night G, not games. Is it late where you are, Lauren, or is it early morning?
I like that. Late night G.
Late night G.
Late night with G.
Coming at you, late night with G. I blinked away the last of my tears. Very well, I said grumpily. I shall call him Foolhoof, if it pleases you. She raised her brows. I cannot say that it does. And your mare? You've not named her either. Oh, but I did, said Mag. She's called Mist. I snorted. Mist. You're like Lauren naming her black horse Midnight. No imagination at all. Midnight is a foolish name, said Mag, smirking. She is a child with dreams of being a legend, I said, waving a hand. What do you expect? Sky above, she calls herself the Nightblade. Mag laughed. Still, you wound me. Mist is a better name by far. I think you made it up on the spot, I retorted. If you named her before this very moment, I will eat my bow. You have caught me, said Mag, bowing her head. You see? And you had the gall to say I tempted fate. What tragedy? And you had the gall to say I tempted fate. What tragedy will your destiny heap upon you for such a transgression? Bedtime Stories with your host, Garrett Robinson. The smile on her face died at once. I think it has given me quite enough already, she said, in a horribly forced attempt at nonchalance. I cursed myself for my foolish words. Yes, we had remembered many of our old habits from our mercenary days, but I had forgotten that campfire talk was supposed to steer away from bad fortune, and especially the grief of the near past. The rest of our conversation that night was stilted and awkward, and I was grateful when I finally rolled myself in blankets to sleep. Hey, what's up, you Noths? Yunhathis. Far, far away in the woods northwest of Lanshui, a creature stalked through the woods. Through the trees, it could see the soft glow of firelight shining through the windows of human home, and even through the walls, it could smell its prey inside. There were several of them, enough to feed on for days. The creature knew that would not sate its deeper, stronger hunger, but it was enough for now. It came out of the woods and stalked forwards, approaching the house's front door. Each motion was virtually silent. The smell of the humans in the house was nearly overwhelming. It ran a black tongue along its browning teeth. Suddenly there came the sound of padded feet inside the house and a snuffling, then a low, rumbling growl. Excuse me. A surge of hate and hunger ripped through the creature. A dog. It had been so focused on its emptiness and the smell of the humans it had missed the scent of the dog. Careless. It tried to step back, away from the house, but its broken claw caught on the ground and it stumbled. Inside the house, the dog's growls turned to full-throated barking. Chairs scraped against the wooden floor as the humans stirred. Oku, said one of the prey. What is it? The creature screeched with impatience and lunged, bursting through the front door into the house. Inside, the prey shot to their feet. They had weapons close at hand, and they seized them. Standing before them was the dog, a large wolfhound almost a pace in height, brown with black spots in its fur. You know that's Chewy, right?
That's awesome, sweetie.
It is awesome. It's very awesome.
When are you going to put me in a book?
You are in a book.
I'm not.
No, you're not. Neither am I.
Kinda.
Kinda what?
Kinda.
What do you mean, kinda?
You put pieces of you all over a book.
Oh, well, I put pieces of you all over my books, too.
Like what?
Mag definitely takes a lot of stuff from you.
I'm not the uncut lady.
You're not, but she takes a lot of her personality from you. I'm not the keeper of air in Realm Keepers, but I am Calvin. The creature screamed in hatred and hunger. Snarling furiously, the dog launched itself at the creature, but a wild swipe staved the beast off, and it slunk back, favoring a light gash in its left flank. The prey drew closer to each other and took a step forwards. "Liu," cried one of them, "run into the woods. Take Oku." "Mama!" The creature's eyes shifted. Behind the three larger prey, one of their offspring stood at the back of the room, cowering in terror. Its eyes were wide, and palpable fear radiated from it. "Go!" cried another of the prey, young but nowhere near as young as the child. "Oku, tis!" The wolfhound bounded towards the child, taking his tunic in its teeth and tugging. Reluctantly, the child rose to its feet and scurried for the house's back door. I keep thinking horse. House's back door, vanishing into the night. The creature dismissed it at once. It had been a tiny thing, and there were 3 full-size prey still in the house. Not enough to completely satisfy the hunger, but enough to stave it off for days. Roaring in fury, it leaped and sank its claws into its first victim. Chapter 20. The day after we camped near the empty Seder town, we reached the crest of the western Great Rocks. Then, for the first time, I took us off the most well-worn path and up one of the side routes that climbed south, riding even higher into the peaks. South, because that was the direction of the heart of Seder territory, at least as far as I was aware. Usually, the author is the narrator unless the book is written in the first point of view. I'm sort of the narrator. I'm going to be narrating the audiobook, so there's that. Then, for the first time, if we meant to find the elders, I was confident we would find them there. It was not long before we started to come upon more Seder encampments and villages. These were less populated than I had imagined they would be, but they were not entirely abandoned. I spent almost half an hour scouting the first one we came upon. Many Seders moved from building to building, but from what I could tell, there were no fighters in the village, only children and those caring for them. The warriors were elsewhere. I guess we would find them with the elders. That was not an entirely comforting prospect. When I had inspected the village to my satisfaction, I returned to Mag. "We must hide the horses somewhere and leave them," I said. "If we bring them any farther, they will certainly alert the Seders to our presence." "There are no woods this high up to hide them from view," said Mag. "We need a cave," I said. "The Seders do not dwell in all of them, nor are all of them connected. We should be able to find an empty one without too much trouble." Right. And that proved to be true. In less than an hour of searching, we found just what we needed. The cave was too shallow for the Seders to have bothered with, but more than deep enough to conceal our horses. We hobbled them and tethered them to a rock that thrust up out of... Thanks for the follow, Eyes Swallow. Eyes... like eyes. Swallow. So I swallow. I swallow. You heard it here first. That's quite a username. It's, yeah. Do you want to come read the full username, Meg? Or do you want me to say it?
I want you to say it.
I swallow _ come 69 420 69. That's the whole username.
I'm curious as to what their gender they identify as.
I'm not. Pretty sure I can take a wild guess. We need a cave, and that proved to be true. In less than an hour of searching, we found just what we needed. The cave was too shallow for the Seders to have bothered with, but more than deep enough to conceal our horses. We hobbled them and tethered them to a rock that thrust up out of the ground. Foolhoof tossed his head as I wrapped his reins around the stone, and I gave him a reproachful look. "Do not even think of chewing your way free," I told him. "I will find you if you do." "Mist would never think of doing such a thing," said Mag haughtily. I shook my head and led her from the cave. Without the horses, it was easy to slip past the first Seder village and the second. We passed them every few spans now, clusters of crude buildings built onto whatever flat ground was available on those high slopes. Occasionally, the villages had a sentry posted nearby, but they were easy to bypass. They appeared to be weaker members of their kind, Seders with missing or twisted limbs, and they leaned heavily on their weapons. Always we found our way back to the main path, and now I began to notice markings upon it. They were not the prints of cloven hooves, but of heavy boots, other humans. "Look," I told Mag, pointing at the tracks. "It seems we are not too late. We might find our foe at the end of this road." "I am right more often than you give me credit for," said Mag. "Let us hurry. The weremage could be dead before the day's end." We were neither of us wont to bloodthirst, but hunting a foe will quicken anyone's pulse. We pressed on faster, yet despite our speed, it was early evening before we found what we sought. To our right, the sun was setting in a display that was as beautiful as it was fiery. It painted the ground in hues of red and gold, and the scant clouds in the sky blazed like the fires of war. But the light had not yet faded when we came upon a great gathering of Seders, and I had to be quick to rush Mag behind cover before we were spotted. Together we crouched behind a boulder shaped like a black broken tooth. On what looked like the top of the highest mountain for many leagues, a great circular space had been trodden flat by what looked like centuries' worth of satyr hooves. Upon that space were now gathered mayhap 20 of satyr warriors, wearing wooden shields on their arms and hefting axes and clubs. They stood in a half ring 2 rows deep, all their attention fixed on the center of the circle. There sat 10. I really need. Do we have any bottled water downstairs?
No.
Okay. There sat 10 carved stone chairs, though only 8 of them were occupied. The satyrs upon those chairs were old, wizened, and grey of fur, and I knew we had found the elders of the clan. But almost immediately my attention went from the elders to the humans who stood before them. They numbered 6, and they wore clothing of blue and grey. The shades were here, just as Greta had said they would be. "Can you see the were-mage?" whispered Mag. "I cannot," I said, "not from here. She may have taken another form. I cannot hear anything. We must get closer. I want to be certain before we attack." "Very well." Now that we were here, I found myself quite reluctant to draw any closer to the satyrs, but my desire to find the were-mage overpowered my caution, as did my curiosity. I wanted to know what the shades were saying that put such fear in the faces of the satyr elders. We left the cover of the rock and crept along a slope that fell away from the platform. We were careful to keep ourselves concealed, but it hardly seemed necessary. No one, neither the shades nor the satyrs, looked away from what was going on. At last, when we were only a score of paces away, I bade Mag to hide again, for now we could clearly make out the shades' words. Again we ducked out of sight, each of us poking one eye into view to see what was going on. "After you killed the messenger," one of the shades, a burly man with a thick bristling beard, was saying. At first I dismissed him, searching only for the were-mage. Then my better sense caught up with me, and I realized the were-mage might very well have changed her appearance, though why would she do so when she had no idea we were watching her? The elder in the center of the row shifted in her stone chair and bleated an answer in the satyr's tongue. I spoke but a little of their language and did not understand her, but there was a clear defensive tone in her voice, like a child who had been caught in wrongdoing and was inventing an outlandish tale to excuse it. An elder at the end of the row spoke in the common tongue. "Elder Seko says, Tiglak's debt was paid. Then we drove the humans towards you. We have told you this already. But what you have not told us," growled the shade, is why you did not tell us of these interlopers." More bleating from Seko, and then the translator spoke again. "Elder Seko says, the Lord never said to tell you. He said not to let any humans pass through the valley and live." The shade thrust a finger towards the center elder. "Which is exactly what you did." The translator quivered at the anger in his voice, but now one of the other elders spoke. He was not quite so hoary as the first, and there was a clear current of anger in his words. The translator looked uncomfortable, but after a sharp reproach from the elder, she spoke. Elder Hagan says, "We allowed nothing," she said, her voice shaking. "We brought them to you. You allowed them to escape, not us." I looked at Mag behind our rock. We were right on that count, it seems. "Never mind that," said Mag. "I cannot see the shades clearly enough to tell if the were-mage is among their number." "What of the leader?" I said. "Satyrs respect only strength and size. She would have better luck speaking to them as a large warrior than in her natural form. You saw how slight she was." Mag frowned. "So it could be her, but how can we know?" Before I could answer, something happened in the circle. The shade seemed to have had enough of the satyrs' arguments. Their leader raised his hand, palm pointing towards the elders, and the circle fell quiet. "Enough," said the shade. "The Lord is tired of your excuses. There will be payment in blood. 2 of you may present yourselves, or we can make the choice for you." My stomach turned. The elders cowered in their seats, and as they did so I glanced at the 2 empty stone chairs. Did I see bloodstains on the rock, or was it my imagination? Had this lord already demanded such a sacrifice once in the past? Elder Seko looked at the others. They chattered back and forth in their own tongue for a moment, with Seko sounding increasingly desperate. Finally, Elder Hagan shot to standing and barked a series of short, loud words. The rest of them fell silent. Slowly, Elder Seko stood from her chair. Beside her, another elder, almost as grey and wizened, stood as well. Together, the 2 of them stepped towards the shades. "The 2 oldest," I muttered. The shade leader stepped forwards. He held up a hand, and then his eyes began to glow. My heart did a somersault, thinking of the were-mage, but then, just as quickly, it sank into my stomach. Elder Seko gasped and clutched at her throat. Slowly, a finger's width at a time, she rose into the air. "You are servants of the Lord," intoned the shade, "as are we, and he does not brook failure." "He is a mind-mage," I said. "He is not who we seek." "He will kill them," said Mag. Her voice had taken on the lifeless monotone of her battle trance. "I am not certain that it would be wise to—" "Oh, sky save us," I said, for Mag had leaped out over the top of the slope. She sprang forward, shield raised and spear held high. Mag was among the shades before they knew what was happening. From 5 paces away she threw her spear. It impaled the shade mind-mage through the chest. He froze, staring at her weapon as the glow died in his eyes. His magic fell away, and Elder Seko fell gasping to the ground. Before the shade had started to fall, Mag seized her spear and kicked him away, ripping the weapon from his torso. She had killed another of the shades before the rest could react. I loosed 2 arrows, each taking a shade in the head. They fell like puppets with cut strings. 2 stood, but not once Mag reached them. One managed to get his sword out. Mag batted it aside with her spearhead before it sliced around in a wide arc and laid his throat open. The other leaped towards Mag with raised blade, but I fired another arrow. It took the shade in the chest, and she fell to one knee, wheezing. She looked up just in time to take Mag's spear in the neck. Her body fell to the floor, her hands jerking as they tried to reach for her throat. She died before managing it. It was over almost before the half-ring of satyr warriors realized what was happening, but once they saw the corpses on the floor, they raised their weapons with angry brays, smashing the weapons against their shields in a violent cacophony. Mag fell into a fighting crouch, her shield up and her spear ready to strike. I knocked another arrow, but did not draw. "Enough," I cried. "It is over." Elder Seko had risen by now, helped to her feet by the other satyr who had offered himself in sacrifice. She spoke in anger and fright using the satyr's language. I frowned at her and then looked over at the translator. The translator shook worse than ever, but she tried to compose herself as she spoke. Elder Seko says, "It is not over," she whimpered. "Who are you? Why have you done this?" I arched an eyebrow. "We have saved the lives of 2 of your elders. You do not sound particularly grateful." The elders might not have deigned to speak the human tongue, but they seemed to understand it well enough. For the oldest one screamed a reply without waiting for my words to be translated. The translator swallowed hard. Elder Seko says, "You are no servants of the Lord. This was not his will. His retribution will fall upon all of us now, and it will be swift and merciless." "Then I suggest you stop obeying this Lord, whoever he may be," said Mag. Elder Seko drew up straight and raised a hand. The half-ring of satyrs edged forwards, but Mag stood firm. "I would not do that if I were you. It will only result in a pile of satyr corpses to go along with these human ones." I gritted my teeth. Mag did not know the nuances of speaking to these creatures. Threats rarely worked unless one had a satyr utterly at their mercy. The satyrs might have been in such a position in truth, but they could not know that. They only saw a normal human woman and would know nothing of Mag's skill. "We saved your elders," I said loudly, trying to draw attention to myself and away from Mag. "2 of your most venerable and wisest leaders would have died if we had not intervened. That ought to earn us at least a moment's clemency." Elder Hagan, who had interjected before, brayed a response. The translator spoke quickly. "Yet now all our lives are in danger. What are 2 lives compared to the whole clan? Do you think the Lord would have stopped there?" I pointed to the elders' stone chairs. 2 of your seats are already empty. What would have stopped the Lord from killing the rest of you if it pleased him?" There was a long moment of dead silence. The satyr warriors were looking between each other and the elders now. Hagan looked furious, but Seko studied us, frowning but not quite hostile. At last she spoke in a slow voice, and the translator hastened to relay her words. Elder Seko says, "Who are you?" "I am Albern of the family Telfer," I said. "This is Mag, the uncut lady, the greatest warrior in the 9 kingdoms." Mag gave me a wry look, but as the translator spoke my words in the satyr tongue, a low, angry rumble ripped through the satyr warriors. Quickly I realized my mistake. "The greatest human warrior," I corrected. "We would never presume to question the might of your own brave fighters." Elder Seko says, "Your name is known to us, Albern," said the translator. "You turned the mind of Tiglak, our warrior. We punished him for his leniency towards you." Anger blossomed in my heart at those words. I had met Tiglak more than once in my travels through the mountains, and more than once he had taken up arms against me, but he had not been bloodthirsty, and he had been an honorable warrior in his way. "I knew Tiglak," I said, "and I never tried to turn him, nor would he have let me. He was a faithful servant of Skal, the Holy Mother between the moons, and I know she honors him in the sky." Elder Hagan erupted in a series of furious screams, but Seko silenced him with a raised and gnarled hand. She looked at me with an expression I could not read. Understanding? Curiosity? From what I knew of the satyrs, I was certain she had never been in the presence of a human who spoke of Skal with true understanding. That is a deep secret of the satyrs, and one no outsider could learn of easily. After a moment's pause, she spoke again. "Elder Seko says, 'I am Elder Seko,'" said the translator. "What do you seek here, Albern?" "We are looking for a wizard," said Mag, "a skin shifter. In her human form, she is short and slim, with horn-colored skin and black braided hair. Have you seen her here?" Seko looked displeased as she shifted her focus to Mag. "Elder Seko says, 'We have seen many humans who serve the Lord,'" said the translator. Before Mag could answer, I stepped in. She would care little for the Lord, but his agents had already... What the fuck was I writing here? I don't know what the fuck was going through my mind when I wrote that. She would care little for the Lord, but his agents had already tried to kill me, and I had had questions ever since. Technical difficulties, please stand by. Oh boy, that's a significant typo. It's the only significant typo I've found in this proofread, so that's a good thing. Like, one is not awful in the first half of the book. Oh, it literally says, I mean, this will be funny one day. Before Mag could answer, I stepped in. She would care little for the Lord, but his agents had already killed me, and I had had questions ever since. Not accurate. I think what I...
Why wouldn't you want to have questions? Because she was already killed. Okay.
No, laugh it up, Fuzzball.
Did you call me Fuzzball?
It's a Star Wars reference. Han talking to Chewie. Nothing?
So is that all I am to you?
A Wookiee? Yes. You're just a Wookiee to me.
Well, you're not going to get any nookie, that's for sure.
Oh, anyway, that's embarrassing and annoying. Suddenly a little darker than expected. Holy shit, Albern's undead! Besides, I thought I still might find Lauren one day and she would want to know. Who is this Lord? What is he? Some have said he is not human, and I believe it, for I know the wise elders would never serve a human. The elders raised their chins with pride at that, and one or two of them bleated quietly. Seko spoke through the translator. Elder Seko says he has appeared only to us who sit in the stone seats. His form is unknown. But when he appeared, how did he look? I pressed. Elder Seko says he was a form all in white, cloaked in mist and light, as terrible as an elf, but speaking words we could hear. I shuddered at that. Even a fleeting thought that the Lord might be an elf was enough to make me want to run and hide in the deepest hole I could find, never to emerge. Enough of the Lord, said Mag. The weremage, have you seen her? Seko stamped a hoof and bleated. Soon the translator said, Elder Seko says, how are we to know? You're humans. Humans look like humans. Mag had enough sense not to point her spear at Seko, but it seemed a near thing. She slammed the butt of it on the rocky ground, and the satyr warriors shifted uneasily around us. I have told you what she looks like. Surely some of you have seen her. The elders seemed displeased. Mag's insistence was not far away from calling them liars. I stepped close to her and spoke in a voice I hoped was too low to be overheard. If she never performed magic in front of them, they may not know who she is. Mag gave a frustrated growl. I had not thought of that. Then what should we do? Before I could answer, Seko suddenly spoke more loudly and rapidly than before. My pulse skipped and I looked to the translator, but she said nothing. Then, behind us, the warriors began muttering to each other. It took me a moment to realize the truth. Seko had not been speaking to us at all, but had been addressing her clan directly. Elves, LOL? Have you not encountered elves in Underrealm yet, Lauren? I thought you were relatively up on the books. Was that an incorrect assumption? After some hurried conversation, one of the satyr warriors stepped forwards. He was large for a satyr, almost as big as Tiglac had been, and he rolled his shoulders as he answered whatever question Seko had put to him. Now Seko turned to the translator and spoke. The translator nodded and relayed the words. Our scouts have seen the woman you seek, she said. She left the mountains heading west and went to a village there. It stands near the place where the southern river of the Great Spearhead leaves the mountains. Thank you, said Mag, nodding to Seko. The elder inclined her head. Elder Seko, I said, I have only one more question. How did the Lord first come to you? How long ago was it? Seko snorted, her nostrils flaring. Elder Seko says we have no more answers for you. My breath had grown quick, and I tried to calm myself. The Lord has caused great suffering in the human kingdoms, I pressed. In this we share your... Seko cut me off without waiting for the translator, and the translator relayed her words as soon as they were spoken. Human worries are nothing to us. You have saved 2 lives, and we have answered more than 2 questions already. Leave now, and remember our generosity and kindness. Oh, yeah. Though my nerves felt grated almost to the root, I knew better than to try to press her any further. Instead, I took a step back and bowed low. Of course, I said. Thank you, Elder Seko. We will never forget your mercy or your lenience. Mercifully, Mag managed not to laugh, though she had to cough though she had to cough to hide it. I tossed my head at her and we walked away from the circle of satyrs. I did not look back until we were well out of sight, though I imagined I could feel the satyrs' eyes boring into my back long afterwards. Chapter 21. Mag and I came riding down out of the mountains some days later. Elder Greto? I guess this is why we proofread. That's not, like, a big deal. But annoying, for sure.
For sure, for sure.
Oh, I'm a big fan of alliteration. People are like, alliteration. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, bruh. Fuck you, bruh. Chapter 21. Mag and I came riding down out of the mountains some days later. Elder Greto had said the were-mage went to a village near the southern river of the Great Spearhead. I thought long on those words, and soon I thought I had an answer to them. I remembered Dorsey well enough, for I had often campaigned there, and I remembered how the Blackwind River came down out of the Great Rocks to join the Blue Water, forming a sort of spearhead in the land. I knew there was a town there, though I did not recall the name of it, and so it was in that direction that I guided Mag, and soon brought her to the outskirts of Lanshui. It looked a sizable town to us. Suddenly she's a magic school. Who's a magic school? What? Not a large city, certainly, but big enough to lose people in. It was built around the river, and I guessed that they used it for trade and for travel.
For what?
Travel. Farmlands were laid out beyond the town proper for leagues in every direction. But as we drew closer, I began to notice that some farms seemed abandoned. About half the fields had no one working in them, and the crops, though mature, were untended. But I did not remark upon it at first, for Mag seemed to be in a poor mood. As we drew closer to the town, I thought I understood why. Though the homes were clearly of Dortian make, and the people here wore Dortian clothing, it was impossible not to see the similarities between this town and Northwood. And when thinking of Northwood, it was impossible not to think of Sten. Alteration. That is hilarious. Do you know why the river is called the Blackwind? I asked her, trying to pull her from such thoughts. Her head jerked around as if she had forgotten I was there and was surprised to hear me speak. What? No. When I wrote that, I burst out laughing. What? No. So I'm a triangle? What? No.
Is that what you base it off of?
No, I wrote it naturally, but when it came out of my fingers through the keyboard, I was like, what? No, it was a little thing. It is the twin river of the Blue Water farther north, and they join at the city of Bertram to form the Fan Rong, I said. In the days of the Sunmane, one of her generals, a man named Torben, came through what would be called the Moonlight Pass into Dorsey's western reaches. His army was low on rations and water after the pass, where they had been attacked many times by satyrs, who were in those days more plentiful. They followed the Great Rock south until they reached the river and the fertile lands that surrounded it. Torben named the river then, for as he said, it shone in midday's light like the purest sapphire, though I valued it more highly than gemstones, for instead of wealth it brought my soldiers life. Shakes fist its guide. Dyslexia! His army camped around the river for 1 week, resting. At last they continued their journey south, seeking for the end of the Great Rocks and what might lay beyond them. Soon they arrived here and found this second river, and Torben called it the Blackwind. My words cut off suddenly, more suddenly than I had intended, for in the middle of the tale I had remembered its ending. Torben had called it the Blackwind because when his army came to it they were attacked by a greater host of satyrs than they had yet faced, and there was a great swarm of imps as well. In the fighting, Torben's son had been killed, and so he had named the river as a curse. That was not the sort of story I thought it would be best for Mag to hear just then. She did not seem to notice the strange way I had cut the tale short, for her eyes were on the town's gates ahead. I followed her gaze and saw why. The gates were almost fully closed, and in front of them stood 3 constables with less than friendly expressions. Trouble, do you think? Said Mag. I doubt it. It is not unusual for a town to be wary of strangers, especially this close to the mountains where there are many dangers. But we both knew that was not entirely true.
Stranger dangers.
God damn it, now I can't stop seeing it.
Sorry. I'll shut up. You changed it.
Yep. No, it's fine. Where there are many perils. It is not unusual for a town to be wary of strangers, especially this close to the mountains, where there are many perils. Timer's up. But we both knew that was not entirely true. There was no war near here, and so there was no reason for this town to be wary of anything except satyrs and harpies, neither of which would be hampered a whit by a closed gate. We spoke no further word as we approached the constables, and for their part they made no move and said nothing as we pulled to a stop before them. "Hail, friends," I said in a cheery voice, suddenly sounding like Uther Pendragon. Alright, gonna take a short 10-minute break. Maybe grab myself a little snacky poo, a snack-a-lackin', a snizzle.
No. No.
Alright, I'll be right back.
I just wanted to say hi to you guys. Hi, Lauren. Oh, he'll be right back. That ninja. Is it Lauren and that ninja? Well, I just wanted to say hi to you guys. It's been a while since I show my face. Ah, you're here. Hey. Don't tell Garrett I was here. Just kidding. He'll see it. I just wanted to say hi. It's been a while. I'm really excited about this book. I don't know if you guys are, but I think it's going to be one of the biggest and best. I love the artwork. I've been dying for the cover to come out. So we had the cover for this, I think, before we had Yaren. So it's been in the works for quite a while. Anyways, I just wanted to say hey. And, oh, hey! And I missed you guys. I don't know. I've been so busy with everything that I haven't been on Discord enough. I haven't been on Twitter enough. Blah, 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 blah. Anyways, yeah, that's it. Yeah, and Mag is my favorite character. She's pretty awesome. And I think she was my favorite character before I knew about her. So, yeah. I have been dying to meet her. And then when I met her, I was like, yes, this is my girl. So, anyways, that's it. I'm going to go find Garrett, kick his butt, and get him back here. I just wanted to say hi. Okay, bye-bye. How do I do this? Away. We'll be back in a moment. Do, 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 do.
Oh, did Meg come and say bye? I really like my wife. All right, one more. One more, and then I go to bed. And we finish tomorrow. Very exciting. Hail, friends, I said in a cheery voice. We beg your leave to enter this town, and too we ask its name, for we have never been here before. One of the constables stood a pace ahead of the others, and the white stripe on her red leather armor marked her as a sergeant. Beneath her red helmet was a shock of bristling yellow hair. I guessed she stood a head taller than me and half a head over Mag, and she had muscled limbs as impressive as her height. Now she stepped forwards, crossing her arms, and spoke. You stand at the gate of Lanshui. Who are you, and where did you come from? I am Mag, and my friend is Albert of the family Telfer, said Mag. And we have a little business here. We need a place to rest and refresh ourselves before making our way to the road that will take us to the Western Sea. Then why are you not on the King's Road? Said the constable. Her words made me frown. It was a reasonable enough question, but the tone behind it was strange, almost desperate. Something was wrong here. I thought again of the untended farms we had just passed. Yeah, I'm technically already in tomorrow, so I guess we finish today? But not right now. There is no great urgency to our journey, I put in. The King's Road would have taken us to Bertram more quickly, it is true, but that would have put many more days between us and a bed to sleep in. You have nothing to fear from us. We are merely weary travelers who have just passed west through the Great Rocks. That did not have quite the desired effect. The constable sagged, passing a hand over her eyes. You are from Selvan. I glanced at Mag, confused. Dorsey and Selvan were fighting in Welmont, but we were so far north that it should not have mattered. Yet we are all citizens of Underrealm. I am a man of Clinton, and Mag here is Dortian. I pointed at Mag, who tensed. It was true that she had come from Dorsey before I met her, but at the same time I was not telling the whole truth. Despite her sudden despondency, the constable seemed to notice Mag's reaction, and her frown deepened. Oh, thank you so much, Jen. Before she could ask another probing question, I spoke again. My apologies, but this conversation is rather hard to keep up when you have not told us who you are. We gave you our own names freely enough. May we know yours as a matter of courtesy? The constable's mouth twisted. I am Constable Yue of the family Baolan, she said at last. You have told me your destination, but not your business. Why are you traveling west? Why, to visit Mag's family, I said, and I thank you for your courtesy, Constable Baolan. Family, is it? Said Yue, who seemed to have ignored my second statement. The two of you are wed, then? Not at all, I said. We are merely friends traveling together. Well-armed travelers, Yue pointed out. And would you go riding through the Great Rocks without a weapon? Said Mag. It was not exactly what you would call a polite question, but I was relieved that she did not let any anger show in her voice. And to my delight, Yue smiled at the question, though she quickly hid it. I suppose I would not, said Yue. She pulled off her helmet and swiped a hand through her bristling yellow hair. Enter, then, travelers. Oh, that's funny. Another backwards quotation mark. Enter then, travelers. Keep to yourselves while you are here and stay indoors after nightfall, and before you leave Lanshui, come and speak with me. Are we not free to... I began. You are free to do whatever you wish, said Yue, scowling at me, but if you have a lick of sense, you will come and speak with me before you leave my town. Is that understood? Of course, I said quickly, raising a hand to pacify her. One question before we go, said Mag. A traveler may have arrived here ahead of us. A woman with nut-brown skin, and no travelers have arrived here, said Yue. Not for many days. Constable, if I may, I said, it sounds as though there is some trouble here. Is it anything we can help with? Yue's scowl deepened. That is my business. Keep to your own. And heed my words. Of course, I said at once, nodding. Can you recommend an inn for us? If you have coin to spend, find the sun spear, said Yue. If you do not, the stag stye will be easier on your purse, and they do not have too many fleas. A stellar recommendation, I said. Farewell, constable. She turned and nodded to the others, who heaved the gate open for us to ride through. Chapter 22. I was more alert now than ever, and as I rode through Lanshui, I tried to take stock of the town. Though the wall was poorly kept up, it was manned, with several archers pacing its length. But though the guards looked alert and wary, they were few. It would have been easy to slip past them unnoticed if that was the aim. It gave the air that this town was wary and watchful, but was unused to being either. Armored soldiers walked the town streets as well, but they wore neither the king's livery nor the red armor of constables. I guess they were locals, pressed into service to guard the town. But against what? Had the shades passed this way, or had some rumor of their coming reached these people? I could think of no other threat that would have put them so on edge, but I saw some people weeping in doorways and in alleys, clearly in mourning. What has happened here, I said, hardly meaning to speak the words aloud. In many places across Dorsey may be found the consequences of war, said Mag. Yet Dorsey makes war on no one but Selvin these days, I said, and this town is far from those battles. It must have something to do with the shades, then. I shook my head. If that were the case, and the town had been attacked, Yue would never have let us in. Then guess at the answer yourself, if you're so wise, grumbled Mag. One thing we told Yue was the truth. I want a bed to sleep in, and quickly. We had a fair bit of coin on us, with the excellence of Mag's ale she had never wanted for money, and so we asked after the sun spear and found it before long. Its sign hung over the door, a spear thrusting up with a red-rayed sun in the background. I glanced at the spear on Mag's saddle and bit my tongue. A girl at the stables took our horses, and we purchased dinner in the common room for a handful of pennies. The food and ale were fine enough, but I found myself longing for Sten's cooking and Mag's brew. Before we'd finished eating, an old man walked into the common room. There were only a handful of people there aside from the two of us, but they all looked up eagerly. The man's eyes were gray and blind with age, and he picked his way through the room with a walking stick. One patron quickly moved a chair from his path to ensure he would not strike it as he walked. Though the top of his head was entirely bald, he had thick, bushy gray brows and a long gray beard down to his waist. He wore deep blue clothes in a common Dortian style, with a shirt that tied at the side and loose trousers collected at the ankle. Despite his stooped figure and slow walk, his lips curved in a smile that seemed nearly permanent. The old man sat on a small platform near the unlit hearth, sitting with his legs folded and his walking stick across his knees. A barman appeared beside him with a bowl of broth and a cup that looked to be filled with wine. The old man took a few sips of the broth and a deep swig of the wine and then settled himself on the platform. I noticed that he had not paid for the meal. And then he leaned back, lifted his head, and began to sing. From the very first notes, I knew I was in the presence of a master. Here was a man who had been singing and, unless I missed my guess, telling tales for decades before I was even born. Though his frame was diminutive, his voice was thick and powerful, and I could feel it thrumming in the wooden chair upon which I sat. He sang some songs I knew by heart and others I had never heard before. He sang some songs I knew, but to strange tunes, and some songs with new words, but set to tunes that were as old as the hills. I had to keep reminding myself to eat, for I kept staring at him, spellbound by the sound of his voice and his effortless command of melody. I was not the only one. All conversation in the common room ceased as everyone listened to the old man. Mag, who had far less appreciation for song and story than I, was yet as entranced as I was. Though the man sang alone and without any instrument, it seemed to me that I could almost hear a troop behind him, a pipe and a lute, and one steady, thudding bodhran. Bodhran? After mayhap a quarter hour, the man subsided into silence and reached again for his broth and wine. I shook myself as if waking from a dream and turned back to my stew. It had very nearly gone cold. That was astounding, I said, surprised at the reverence in my own voice. Mag smiled at me. Sky above, you look jealous. I always said you would have made a better bard than a mercenary. I pointed my spoon at her. That was not a compliment when you first said it, and it is not a compliment now. Where would you be if I had pursued a life in a king's court, and had not been there to look after you? Her eyebrows shot for the ceiling. Oh, I would surely have perished long ago, she said, her voice straining mightily to hide the joke in her voice. Yeah, Mag is snarky. Her eyebrows shot for the ceiling. Oh, I would surely have perished long ago, she said, straining mightily to hide the joke in her voice. And do not forget it. I glanced over my shoulder at the old man, who was still resting before he resumed singing. Besides, it is hard to say that I should have been a great and renowned bard when in the presence of one who deserves the honor so much more. I know, right? They're my favorite friendship that I've written in Underrealm so far. No, I can't say that. If you're so enchanted with the man, go and speak to him, said Mag, chuckling. In fact, I think I shall, I told her, and not just for my own entertainment. We want information, and who better to give it to us than a man who tells tales for his supper? So saying, I stood and went across the room to sit beside the old man. He heard me coming, and his head tilted up as he listened to my footsteps approach. His milky eyes looked just over my left shoulder, and I smiled, entirely forgetting he could not see the expression. Greetings, friend, I said. I wish to give you my praise for your songs and your voice. I have rarely heard a singer so fine. Rarely, said the old man. His grin revealed a few missing teeth in the back. I am losing my touch, then. I must work harder until it becomes never, but I thank you for your kind words. I chuckled and pulled up a chair to sit beside him. That would be a tall order. I have traveled to many lands and been in many fine courts of nobility. The old man's bushy brows rose. Courtly bards, he scoffed. If you ask me, they are limited in skill to the moment when some foolish noble hires them. They think they were hired for the songs and stories they already know, and so they never bother to learn any more. That is an interesting thought, and I am somewhat glad to hear it, I said, smiling still wider. I sometimes think I should have become a bard, but if it would have stunted my skill, I am glad I never did. He laughed at that, and then he held out his hand. I grasped his wrist and shook firmly. They call me Dryleaf here in this town, he said. And what do they call you elsewhere? He smiled and did not answer. I am Alburn of the family Telfer. Telfer, he said, cocking his head. From Calenton, then, are you? That made my heart skip a beat. Of the many people I had met across the 9 kingdoms, only a handful had ever recognized the name Telfer. Even when they did, it was rare they could place the kingdom it came from. I tried to speak easily, passing off the moment of hesitation. I am indeed, I told him, but you do not look like a man from my homeland. Nor am I, he said. I am from everywhere, as they say. In my day, I was a wandering peddler who roamed all over the 9 kingdoms, but one day my eyes went, he pointed to the milky white orbs, and once they started going bad, it happened fast. I was on my way north, but I was injured crossing the Blackwind just outside this town. I had an uppity horse, and it threw me, and my leg broke. It was not such a bad injury, but old bones are slower to heal. By the time I was ready to ride again, my traveling days were over. Since then, I have waited for anyone traveling to Selvin, hoping I could beg to come along, but the opportunity has never presented itself. It must be 3 years now? Lanchwy does not lie on any of the great roads that cross Underrealm. We rarely see travelers at all, and even more rarely lately. His mention of Selvin dampened my mood. Even now the shades would be pursuing Lorne through the birchwood, and I doubted anyone who lived there was safe. I thought to myself that it was a good thing Dryleaf had never reached his destination. Sometimes fate is kind in cruel ways. Oh, I love that line. I'm so proud of that line! But the last thing he had said caught my attention. I thought something seemed amiss when I came here. Why is everyone so afraid? We were questioned quite closely by the constable when we arrived. You mean? Said Dryleaf. She's a good sort, if a bit stern. But if she let you in, you will have seen that for yourself. I noticed that he had deftly avoided answering my question. A good sort indeed, but why did she suspect us so? Dryleaf pursed his lips and nodded a few times, as though bobbing his head in time to some beat I could not hear. His bushy brows had drawn close together. I am not so sure I should speak of it, he said. After all, you are a stranger, if an exceedingly polite one. Some strangers are folk of pure intent, but others are less so. And have you met any of the latter sort? I asked. Anyone in the town who seems not to have the best interest of the people at heart? He shook his head, but he did it with a little smile. I'm sorry, but I will not say more. Not yet. If you remain here for a while, we might discuss matters in more detail. But for now, I think it is best if you look to yourself, and I do the same. He shifted where he sat and reached for his meal. And now, if you will forgive me, I must have a few bites before I get back to what earns my meal. I wish you well, and I hope we speak again. Despite his courtesy, the end of the conversation came so abruptly that I felt myself at a loss for a moment. Yet it seemed clear that I would glean nothing more from him just now, so I politely excused myself and returned to Mag. Chapter 23. What a strange old man, said Son. Alburn laughed. He was. He has died, then? Oh, yes, Alburn said quietly. He was old even then, and as I said, this was decades ago. Son frowned. I do not understand. Why was he so polite and yet unwilling to help? He said strangers could not always be trusted, but if that was the case, why would he speak with you at all? Alburn's somber mood vanished. You must learn to allow the elderly their peculiarities, he said. Oftentimes we do things only to make your life difficult, as revenge for the toll time has wreaked upon us. But the town was in danger. And how did he know it was not in danger from me? Said Alburn. That is pulling a little ahead of the story. But you should remember not to be too trusting of strangers, even if you still manage to be courteous to them. I should not have trusted you if I took that advice, muttered Son. True enough, said Albert, but as Dryleaf himself would discover, I am no one of ill intent. He remained silent for a good long while, staring down at the reins he held in his hand. He did not look as mournful as when he had recounted Sten's death, but Son thought she could still sense a deep sadness in him. What is wrong? She asked. Nothing exactly, he said. It is only that I have not recalled Dryleaf in a very long time. The old man and I rode many long miles together. When you get older, you will find that all your stories are laced with grief, for they always concern at least one person who is no longer with you. It is a curse that grows worse the older you get, that fewer and fewer people are left who attended the most important parts of your life. But enough somber talk. In truth, I was only thinking that our expedition tonight is rather like those adventures then, though of course I am much younger now than Dryleaf was, and you are much younger than I was. Son blinked. You mean that Dryleaf is a part of the story, she said. Albert smiled. Oh, yes, very much a part of it, he said. He did not seem important when you met him, said Son. I thought he would be just another name in a tavern, heard briefly and then never seen again, like Elsie, who you left in Northwood. I have never heard of him in any other tale of you and the Wanderer. But you have never heard of Sten either, and yet you can see how important he was, said Albert. None of this would have happened without Sten. Indeed, I was just some man in a tavern when first you laid eyes upon me, yet now here we are, riding off together. Son raised her eyebrows. We are not riding anywhere together. You are riding, and I am walking. That made Albert laugh aloud, his voice ringing through the night to be swallowed by the trees on either side of the road. A privilege of age, and you will not have to walk for much longer. I am pleased to hear it. Albert smiled and shook his head. In any case, you should never discount strangers met by chance, if indeed you believe it chance at all. My own thoughts on that matter are far from settled, and my opinions have changed much over the years. But the more I see in my life, the more I begin to believe that there is indeed some great pattern that binds everything together, drawing certain people closer to each other before pulling them away. I do not think it was chance, for instance, that brought Mag and Sten together. The moment those two met, it was as though they had been together all their lives. Sten was a simple farmer in northeastern Selvin, and Mag and I were passing through in one of those years when we served no mercenary company in particular. We only intended to stay in the town for a day or two, but then there was Sten. We had been there almost a week before I even realized we had remained longer than we planned. And that was strange, for I spent most of those days alone, while Mag and Sten would go walking together. I usually only shared their company in the evenings, when we would sit and talk and drink in the way that only young people can drink, with no fear of the pain morning will bring. Yet it all seemed right, natural. I was traveling with Mag, and Mag belonged in that town at that time by Sten's side, and so nothing seemed untoward as far as I was concerned. We left the town after 3 weeks, and we joined another mercenary company soon afterwards. We campaigned for some months, and then we returned to northeastern Selvin, and we went back to Sten's town while we waited for the company to get hired again. We only stayed a week that time, but the next time we returned, we were there for 2. Every time the company came home, Mag and I found ourselves in that town, and Mag found herself by Sten's side. Now, as I've told you already, Mag was not the sort to seek out bedfellows. She had had 1 or 2 whirlwind romances while I had known her, but they never went past a certain point. But in those early days with Sten, it never even went that far. It was as though she and Sten did not even think of each other as lovers. Rather, Mag seemed to have adopted the attitude that time spent away from Sten was simply foolish. If she had to, for our duty to the company, of course she would part from him, but given the option, she would always be with him, and that was simply the way it went. Not long afterwards, the company went out on one of the longest campaigns I have ever seen. Almost a year we were on the road, and Mag's mood grew more and more dour. About 6 months into the campaign, Mag approached the captain and requested a leave of absence. To visit family, she told him, but I knew full well that Mag had no living family. Of course, she told me where she was really going. She was returning to northeastern Dorsey for a month to see Sten because she was worried how he was getting on. Northeastern Selvin. Because she was worried how he was getting on. The captain was loath to let her leave, but he did it anyways. Mag was gone for 3 weeks, and then she returned. In some ways it seemed as though a great weight had lifted from her shoulders, and she joked more often and laughed more readily. But I could tell she was troubled, and when she thought no one was looking, I caught her staring into the distance, her expression one of deep thought. At last I approached her. Mag, I said, something happened while you were gone. Would you spit it out and tell me so that I can stop worrying about you? She looked entirely confused. What do you mean, she asked. I am the same as I have always been. May the dark take me if that is true, I said. You seem relieved ever since you visited Sten, but it also seems as if something else troubles you. Why are you upset? I am not upset, she assured me, though I suppose you are right that something has bothered me. But it is not my own sadness that bothers me, it is Sten's. He was happy to see me, of course, but something weighed on him, and no matter how I asked, he would not tell me what was wrong. There was a great sadness in his eyes when I left him, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. Then I laughed at her, laughed long and loud. Mag, you are the greatest warrior I have ever known, I told her, and you are also the greatest idiot. Sten is troubled because he loves you with all of his heart. And judging by the fact that you took leave to go visit him, when you have never taken leave in all the years I have known you, I would guess that you love him too, and are too stupid to realize it. Mag dismissed my words as preposterous, and the conversation ended soon after. But deep down, she knew I was right, and it did not take her long to realize the truth. Over the next year, something changed within her. Battle and warfare, which she had always loved, suddenly became distasteful to her. She no longer loved to throw herself into battle. Well, 2 battles. She no longer loved to throw herself into a fight. Nor to spar with me and the other sellswords. Before, she had loved to practice, no matter how easy it was for her to beat us every time. Now she could hardly be mustered to the practice yard even for mandatory drilling. A year later she officially tendered her resignation, and I did the same. Our captain begged and pleaded with us to say, Mag more than me, of course, but she would not be dissuaded. We left together, and we returned to Sten, and soon they married and moved to Northwood. Sten was nothing special, and I say that as one of his dearest friends. He was a farmer's son like many others across the 9 lands, but he was exactly what Mag needed, in that place and in that time. The life of a mercenary had nothing new to offer her, but she could not see that, so she met one who would teach her the lesson instead. The timing was too perfect to be mere luck. The same has always proven true, at least in my experience. Mayhap it was chance that put Dryleaf and me in that tavern together at the same time all that long while later, but I've had my doubts, and those doubts have not slept in the many years since. What else would it be, if not chance? Said Son. Alburn leaned low in his saddle, and his voice grew somewhat hushed. Can you look at everything that has happened across Underrealm, everything that is still happening now, and tell me you do not think there is some greater power at work, some great force we cannot understand, pulling our strings like puppets? Son frowned up at him. What power? What force? He straightened and shrugged. If I had the answer, I would surely sell it to a king for a wagon full of gold, but I will advise you not to be too ready to believe in chance. The smallest actions can have the most profound effects, and we can hardly guess at them. For even the most mundane of occurrences, there may be reasons we can but guess at. That was not an entirely pleasant thought, and it lingered in Son's mind. If even the ordinary choices in her life could contain some great and hidden purpose, then what of the more consequential ones? She had thought her adventure with Alburn tonight was little more than a lark. She did not like to imagine what else it could be. These thoughts troubled her more and more as they went on and as Alburn resumed his story. Chapter 24. I was somewhat disgruntled after my conversation with Dryleaf, but there was little I could do about it. Mag and I slept well that night, happy to have a mattress beneath us instead of a bedroll on the hard ground. The next morning we broke our fast quickly, and then returned to our room to discuss what we should do. I think it is clear what danger threatens the town, she said. The people here are frightened of the shades. They must be terrorizing the countryside. But then why would UA let us in? I asked. Mayhap they know the shades, or know what they look like, said Mag. You and I are no friends of theirs, certainly. Mayhap UA knew it when she permitted us to enter. I shook my head. That seems quite a guess. She spread her hands. Do you have a better one? No, I admitted. Then let us carry on as if I am right, until proven otherwise. Unless you would rather sit in this inn and wait for the weremage to come to us. Any plan of action, carried out with certainty, is better than no plan at all. I had to laugh at that. Do not throw Victon's words at me after all these years. You obeyed him easily enough when we fought for him, she said with a grin, and that has not been for many long years. Despite my protests, I knew she was right. We had no better ideas, and even if a thorough search did not reveal the shades themselves, it might lead us to another answer. Still, I was nervous we might draw attention to ourselves. Constable Yue had made it clear that we were not to cause trouble in her town, and we were planning to do exactly that. For caution's sake, we set out into the streets with our cloaks on and our hoods up despite the heat of the day. Soon we were both drenched with sweat. I did my best to ignore it, but Mag complained mightily. We worked our way through shops, ostensibly to pick up supplies so that we could continue on our journey. If the shades are indeed terrorizing this town, the people will know where they are, said Mag. Keep an eye out for places that the townsfolk avoid, even if they only avoid looking at them. We did so, but we soon realized we had a problem. The town was much the same as it had been yesterday. The people were afraid and despondent no matter where we went. It was hard to find a place they were avoiding when they seemed to be avoiding going outside at all. Few townsfolk would look at us, and in every shop we visited the owner would conduct business as quickly as possible without speaking. When we tried to make conversation, they gave short, clipped answers or simply asked us to leave. And most curiously, when we told them we were looking for supplies to leave Lenchui and continue our journey, they looked at us with terror in their eyes. Probably out of frustration, Mag's course became increasingly erratic, crossing back and forth through the town on a dizzying path with no pattern that I could discern. At last, just past midday, she stopped in the middle of the street and balled her hands into fists. "Let us get ourselves a meal and something to drink." "That would be a welcome relief," I said. By now my shirt was clinging to me with sweat. "Mm-hmm," said Mag with a nod. Something in her manner was strange, and I grew alert at once. She seemed distracted. "Mag," I said in a low voice, "what is it?" "Mayhap nothing," she said. "I might say more when we find a place out of the sun. Though I was intensely curious, I followed her without further questions. She stepped into the first tavern she found and paid for a light meal of bread and cheese and ale. Leading me to a corner table, she sat facing the door with her back against the wall. I sat beside her, facing out into the rest of the room. "Well," I said. "I thought I saw someone following us," she told me. "They were being careful not to be seen, but stealth did not seem to be their strong suit. There! Look at me and pretend we are talking." We turned our heads towards each other. "We are talking," I pointed out. "Yes, good," said Mag, just like that, as though we were really having a conversation. I laughed at the joke, but also to help the ruse. The laugh gave me an excuse to turn my head back towards the rest of the room, and I saw the person Mag must have been talking about. He was a young man with bulging eyes and short black hair, his light brown cloak thrown back over his shoulders in the heat. As soon as he had entered the room, he had gone straight to the proprietor and was speaking with him now. Their words were inaudible from where we sat. "The boy?" I said, turning back to Mag. "Yes," she said. I kept seeing him on whichever street we were on, no matter how wildly I turned our path." "So that is why you took such a strange route through the streets," I said. "I was wondering about that." "He is leaving," said Mag, glancing out of the corner of her eye. "We should go after him." "Oh, do you think so?" said Mag with a smirk. "Be careful, though. Capturing him will be useless, and of course we cannot kill him. He looks young. I think he will be easily frightened." "Let us spring an attack that fails. He might lead us straight back to his masters." "Unless he is the weremage in disguise," I said. Mag sighed and shook her head. "Albern, you know I love you, like one loves a helpless pet, but you can be intolerably foolish. We know the weremage can take a bird's form. If she knew we were here, and if she were following us, she would watch us from the sky." She stood and made for the tavern's front door without waiting for my answer. I lifted one finger and opened my mouth to call out a retort, but could think of nothing. Lowering my hand, I stood to follow her, grumbling many ominous things about pets and helpless and what I would show her about intolerable foolishness. I was careful Mag heard none of my words, of course. We left the tavern and headed down the... I really love them. We left the tavern and headed down the street, back the way we had come. As we did, a figure detached itself from a nearby wall and followed us, trying to stick to the sparse shadows cast by buildings. Mag had been right about one thing. The boy was about as stealthy as a troll, with an arrow in each eye and a spear in its backside. "Now," whispered Mag, and ducked suddenly down an alley. I dashed after her. We ran to the end of the alley and split up on the other side, each of us hiding behind a corner and waiting for the boy to follow. We heard his hurried footsteps drawing nearer. Mag gripped her spear and nodded to me from across the alley mouth. The boy cried out in terror as we leaped upon him. Mag brought the butt of her spear around and struck him in the ribs with it. It was a light tap, but he squealed like a shot squirrel. I had already drawn back my fist to swing at him, but when he doubled over, my fist sailed over his head and into Mag's jaw. She stumbled back, apparently stunned for a moment, and then attacked again. But she seemed to overestimate the swing of her spear this time, and the butt crashed into my shoulder instead of the boy's face. I fell against the building beside me, grunting in pain. The boy, who had all the wit of a bit of overcured leather, stared at us in confusion. I growled at Mag through gritted teeth. "Stop just standing there, or he will get away." As though the idea had never occurred to him before, the boy screamed and ran back through the alley the way he had come. Mag seized my shoulder and pulled me after her. "You swung a bit harder than you needed to," Mag remarked. "My deepest apologies. I am only a helpless pet and cannot always control my own strength." Mag snorted and redoubled her pace, for the boy had vanished around the side of the buildings up ahead. Mag and I followed him just as he had been following us, but with one important difference. We knew what we were doing. We hung back at each corner, only peeking around to make sure we saw which way the boy had gone. I just love the... Stop just standing there or he will get away. The boy's like, oh! We hung back at each corner, only peeking around to make sure we saw which way the boy had gone. It seemed to me, however, that we hardly needed to take such precautions. The boy did not glance back even once, and he did not seem to complicate his route at all, but led us straight to the heart of Lanshui. At last he threw open the door of a ramshackle house and then slammed it shut behind him. Mag and I skidded to a halt just outside the door, looking up at the building. "Is there any reason not to follow him straight away?" said Mag. "This is a large building that can contain a dozen enemies or more," I said. "Any good reason, I mean." I drew my sword. None. Mag grinned as she hefted her spear. Together we launched ourselves forward, slamming our shoulders into the front door. It burst open, and I took in the room at a blink. Just before us stood the boy, his eyes bulging more than ever with terror at the sight of us. He stood with two others, a thin, headish man and a fat Dortian woman. Shades, I guess, though they did not wear blue and gray. A fourth shade stood in the doorway at the other end of the room. She was older but hale and wore her gray hair in a braid. "Well met," I said. "Did we meet in Northwood? I have such a terrible memory for faces." "Pantu, you fool!" hissed the woman with the gray braid. Then to the others she cried, "Kill them!" But she did not heed her own advice, instead turning and fleeing deeper into the house. The thin man shoved the boy out of the way and rushed us, unsheathing a sword. The woman picked up a warhammer before doing the same. I braced myself to receive the man's first lunge, but that turned out to be unnecessary. Mag gave a savage thrust, and his sword arm was dangling useless at his side. Useless. Useless at his side, useless. I think I fixed that already. Yeah, that was fixed. While his blade clattered to the floor, the fat woman swung her warhammer twice, driving us both back one step, but then Mag pounced. Her spearhead pierced the woman's gut, making her gasp before withdrawing and striking again, this time straight into her heart. Hey, what's up, Nicole? God, you're up late. Isn't it like 3 hours ahead where you are? Isn't it like after 4 in the morning? I almost relaxed before I saw the thin man trying to retrieve his sword with his left hand. My own sword came sweeping down and the shade fell to the floor. The boy cowered in the corner of the room, his hands raised helplessly before him, terrified. Mag advanced on him, but I darted forwards and took her arm. She whirled on me, and I flinched before her dead-eyed gaze. 3 a.m. there? Oh my gosh. "Mag," I said, "look at him." She hesitated and looked down at the boy. He looked back up at us, terrified. I felt the tension bleed from Mag's arm. "Run for your life," I told the boy, "and if you know what is good for you, stop working with these shades. They will come to ruin in the end." I tossed my head, and the boy bolted through the open front door. Oh, that sucks, Nicole. Good luck getting back to sleep, I guess. I tossed my head and the boy bolted through the open front door. "There will be more of them," said Mag, her voice the emotionless monotone of her battle trance. "Let us clear the house, and carefully." She started for the door to the left, but I took her arm and stopped her. When she turned on me, I tried not to flinch at her dead eyes. "Wait," I said. I pointed to the room's second door on the right. "If we chase the woman, she might be able to circle through the house and come out this way. One of us should stay here to guard the exit." "There could be a back door, too," she said tonelessly. "There could be, but we know about the front door," I said. "Go after her before we waste too much time." She nodded and darted through the left-hand door. I felt a twinge of shame at how easily I had let her go off on her own, but both of us knew that if one of us should go alone into the house, it should be her. I could be overwhelmed if more foes waited within. Mag could not. I took a stance by the front door, sword ready in my hand. After the first few moments, the house was silent. Not even Mag's footfalls could be heard. My pulse thudded loud in my ears, but it was thick and muddy. I shook my head, trying to clear it. What was wrong with this place? The air was heavy with more than the midday heat. I could feel an evil energy seeping from the very walls. I had heard wizards talk about sensing magic at work. This felt like what they described, but of course I was no wizard. Even if there was magic here, I would never have been able to sense it. Yet I could sense something. Footsteps came pounding from behind the left-hand door. I tensed, raising my sword, and then I realized that it had to be Mag. No foe could have gotten past her to flee here. The door opened to reveal the shade woman with the gray braid. She skidded to a halt at the sight of me, her well-lined eyes going wide. She, too, held a blade in her hand, but it dipped for a moment as she dragged a hand down her face. "This was not supposed to happen," she muttered, almost as if talking to herself. "You were never supposed to come here." I shifted my stance slightly, watching for a trick. "I'm sorry to be such a disappointment, though you may be relieved to know I have always been such, according to those who know me best." She spat on the wooden floor. "Shut your prattling lips. You were not meant to die here, but dark take me if I will let you kill me instead." "Now be calm," I said. "There is no reason anyone has to—" She lunged before I could finish, and I barely blocked her overhead swing. But hardly had her blade rebounded before it came again, swinging for my left this time. I tried to twist out of the way, but I felt the tip of the blade slice a deep cut in my forearm. I grimaced in pain and tried to step away, but she followed. Okay, I have to say real quick, Albert in this book reminds me of that post that I saw floating around on Tumblr that was basically about what's his face? Black Panther, about T'Challa. And it was like, T'Challa in everyone else's movie. Totally cool, awesome, always the most interesting and intriguing guy in the room. T'Challa in his own movie, an absolute dork, constantly roasted by the strong women around him. Basically survives because of his sister and girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, Albert in Darkfire, fucking badass. Everybody's like, this guy's so cool. He's so, like, cultured, and, like, he knows all these stories and songs, and he's this amazing archer, and he's a guide and a tracker. Shows up in Bloodlust, total fucking dork. And I love it. "You people do not poison your weapons, do you?" I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Do you think servants of the Lord have no honor?" she said. Then she smiled. "You will have to find out, I suppose." She attacked again. I warded her blows, but each one forced me another step back. I could not risk a glance behind me, but I could feel the closed door at my back. The woman saw it, and she gave a grim smile. She was a better fighter than I was, and we both knew it. I took a wild swing that forced her a half-step back, but even as my sword came around, I could feel myself losing my balance. I stumbled, and she saw her opening. "Die, wretch," she hissed, swinging from my side. Excuse me. The only thing I could do was fall to the floor. My sword clattered out of reach. Her blade hissed harmlessly through the air where I had stood a moment before, but I had only prolonged the inevitable. I rolled desperately onto my back, hoping against hope that I could roll out of the way of her next swing. But the woman was not standing over me with her blade held high. In fact, she was only standing at all because Mag's spear had pierced straight through her head and embedded itself in the wall. Now the woman hung feebly from the middle of the spear, bouncing up and down slightly with its spring. Her eyes were cold and empty. I looked over. Mag stood in the right-hand doorway, blood spattered all across her clothing. She'd arrived just in time to throw her spear across the room and through the head of my foe. Even as I watched, her battle trance slipped away and warmth came back into her expression. 5, Albern, she said. "I took 5 of them, and still I had to help you against 1. "In a building like this, yes," I said. "Put me on an open field and put a bow in my hand, and stand your enemies in a line, facing you like practice dummies, and do not give them any weapons to fight back." "Yes, yes," said Mag. She came to me and held out a hand to pull me up, forcing a slight smile. "We cannot always fight in perfect circumstances, you oaf." "Oh, be silent," I grumbled. "And would you take back your spear? That is unnerving." I pointed at the gray-haired woman, still suspended where she stood by Mag's weapon. Mag's little smile died, and she went about the messy business of retrieving her spear. Once she had extricated it from the woman in the door, she cleaned it on the woman's cloak. I went to where my sword had fallen and picked it up, keeping a suspicious eye on both doors leading out of the room. I did not want to be taken by surprise again. Mag noticed my attitude and shook her head. "I got them all. The house feels empty." "But still evil," I remarked. The air was still thick with the curious power I had felt earlier. "Yes, still evil," said Mag. "How did the woman get past you?" I said. "She emerged from the left-hand door, the same one you went through. Did she slip by somehow?" Mag turned to look at the door, frowning. "She did not. I circled the whole house and came back around the other way, and I did not see her until I killed her. But I passed the staircase leading up. The woman must have run upstairs and then come back down after I had passed. She and 3 others. They found me in the back room, surprising me by attacking from behind." My eyebrows shot for the ceiling. "However did you survive?" Mag put a hand over her heart. "It was a near thing." I could not find it in me to laugh. A mercenary learns to lighten their mood, even in the midst of the grim business of killing, but I was never able to laugh in the presence of an enemy's corpse. I wish now that I had not killed all of them, said Mag. I did not think to let any of them live, for I thought we could interrogate this one. She pointed at the corpse of the gray-braided woman. Interrogate. I closed my eyes and sighed. The weremage. She was not here. In the fighting, I had almost forgotten about her. Sky. I had not thought of that. Clearly not, said Mag. In any case, we did not find what we sought, and I feel it would be unwise for us to remain here overlong. Let us be on our way. A sensible suggestion, I said. I turned to the front door and threw it open, relieved at least that I would be able to escape the oppressive feeling that permeated the house. The open air outside felt like cool spring water on a midsummer day. I stopped just past the threshold and took several deep breaths. Mag was not so dramatic about it, but I could see the relief on her face as well. She planted the butt of her spear on the ground and leaned on it with a sigh. You! The voice, new but still familiar, froze my blood. I looked up, the sinking feeling in my stomach growing worse, to see Yue marching towards us, her face red beneath her shock of bristling yellow hair. Dark take the both of you. You are under arrest, under the authority of the king's law. Chapter 25. Constable Baolan, I said, raising a hand to wave at her. Well met. Again. She stalked up to us in a huff, hands balled to fists by her sides. Behind her were the same two constables we had seen at the gate the day before. They looked at each other warily, hands near the handles of their clubs. I told you... another backwards quote. Not there. Wow, I already fixed that one. There you go. I told you not to make trouble while you were in my town, growled Yue, and then, a short while ago, someone came and told me they saw you chasing a boy through the streets of the town. He was following us, said Mag easily. We wanted to know why. He is from this town, said Yue. You are not, and before... Wait. She stopped abruptly and pulled her club from its hook on her belt. Her companions did the same, though more slowly. Yue pointed at Mag and me, glaring. That is blood. I winced as I looked down at myself. It is. We were attacked. Where? Snapped Yue. I pointed into the house behind us. Yue glanced at it and then looked back to me. You go in first, she said. There was nothing for it. I did as she asked, with Mag just behind me and the constables bringing up the rear. We filed into the front room, and Mag and I stepped to the side. The bodies of the first two shades, along with the gray-haired woman, lay on the floor in clear view. Blood had already begun to pool around them. Yue hissed and raised her club as if expecting us to attack. But I had already raised my hands in surrender, and Mag had made no threatening move, though she still held her spear. Drop your weapon, Yue ordered. Mag sighed and did so, slowly raising her hands just as I had. Constable, as my friend has already told you, we were attacked. We only defended ourselves. After breaking down the front door, if I am not mistaken, said Yue. My spirits, already low, plummeted further. The front door had plainly been smashed open, a detail I had not recalled until Yue mentioned it. We did, it is true, I said, but only in haste. Because of the boy, you claim, said Yue. Yes, I said. He fled once his companions attacked us. He is young, between a child and an adult. He has short hair and wide, prominent eyes. Yue's face went white. Pontu? We did not harm him, I said, and he made no move to harm us. Only these ones did so. He fled soon after the fighting started. If that is true, we shall soon find out, said Yue. Sinshi, go and fetch him. The constable hesitated a moment, looking uneasily between us and his master. But when Yue fixed him with a furious look, he hastened to obey, awkwardly trying, and failing, to close the front door behind him. My stomach did another turn. We could hardly expect the boy to speak in our defense. Though he had not seemed as bloodthirsty as his shade companions, we had chased him and then murdered his fellows. We had to figure out a way to turn Yue to our side before the boy got here, or else we had to hope he had already hidden himself so well the constable could not find him. May I explain our case further? I asked Yue. I think I have heard your side, spat Yue. Now I would hear from the boy you chased for no good reason that I have heard yet. Is it so strange? I said. You know we are travelers, and you can likely tell that we are no strangers to battle and fighting. We are in a strange place, and then someone starts following us. Would you not be curious if you were us? Of course I would be, said Yue, but I imagine that were I in your shoes, my path would not have ended in murder. Not murder, said Mag. We told you. Yes, that you defended yourselves, said Yue. She looked at me. You are right, Albern of the family Telfer, and that I can tell you are no strangers to fighting, and given the chance I would do much to avoid any sort of fight against your friend Mag here. Tell me, if she is so great a warrior, could she not have defended you both without taking 3 lives? Beside me, Mag tensed and gave me a quick look. As I met her gaze, my mouth twisted as though I had bitten into a lemon. Albern, began Mag. What? Snapped Yue. What is it? Ignoring Mag's urgent look, I spoke softly to Yue. There are not these are not the only 3, I told her. There are 3 more in the back room. Yue's face went as pale as the corpse of the headish man on the floor. But to her credit, her voice seemed entirely calm when she spoke again. I see. And they were killed in self-defense as well, I take it? Albern, you fool, muttered Mag. Do you think she would not have found them? I said. I met Yue's gaze without flinching. We should not be afraid of telling the truth, for we have nothing to hide. That is a noble sentiment, though one I find hard to believe, said Yue. She turned to the constable beside her. Ashta, collect our weapons. Ashta hastened to obey while Yue fixed us both with another hard look. Indeed, the only reason I have not clapped you in irons already is that I can hardly believe 2 murderers as ruthless as you appear to be would behave so foolishly that they would let themselves be caught by constables and then freely admit to their own killings. That is 1 point in our favor, then, I said, handing my sword to Ashta. Mag hesitated only a moment before handing over her spear. Do not be flip with me, said Yue. Why do the deaths of these people bother you so? Said Mag suddenly. The rest of us froze, even Ashta, who had been halfway back to Yue with our weapons. Slowly, all 3 of us turned to stare at Mag. All right, later, Lauren. I am out as soon as I finish this chapter. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out. It was great to see you. Are you joking? Said Yue. You have murdered 6 people in my... 6 people, yes, but not 6 people from this town, said Mag. None of these people are from Lanshui, are they? I think the boy is local. Pontu, you called him? But none of the others look Dortian, or even half Dortian, like you. And they all seem to be living here in a house that looks to have suffered many long years of disrepair. I would guess that no one from Lanshui has lived here in mayhap half a decade, and that you did not know the house was occupied at all. That means they were living here for some secret purpose, under your nose. And they are fighters, just as we are. What noble purpose could such warriors have for dwelling here, out of sight of the king's law? Yue said nothing for a long moment. Ashta frowned as she drew near her sergeant again, but it was a frown of deep thought, not of anger or denial. Mag had struck upon something I had not even considered, and from the looks on the constables' faces, I could tell her guess was at least close to the truth. Regardless of any of that, Yue pressed, the king's law still applies, whether these people were born in Lanshui or not. Yet the king's law provides for defending oneself against unprovoked attack, I said. You keep saying that, said Yue. How far do you think such an excuse will stretch? There are 6 corpses in this house. Why did you not simply flee after the first 2 attacked you? My mouth opened, but no words came for a long moment. Well, it all happened very quickly, I said at last, well aware of how weak the excuse sounded. I was spared further embarrassment as the front door opened and Sinchi returned with the boy, Pontu, in tow. Pontu did not look to have come entirely of his own free will. I was afraid his bulging eyes would nearly fall from his skull, and he was covered with a sheen of sweat that I guessed was not entirely from the heat outside. When he saw Yue looming over him, he flinched. I found him, Sergeant, said Sinchi. Hello, Pontu, growled Yue. I thought we had moved past the point where I would find you involved in some sort of trouble every other week, and yet here we are. Pontu looked resentfully at her from under his hooded lids. I did not do anything wrong, he mumbled. Yue thrust a finger at Mag and me. These strangers say you did. Did they attack you and your friends here first, or was it the other way around? The boys stared at us for a long moment. The room went utterly quiet, and it felt as if time itself had stood still. The only sensation in my body was the same oppressive weight of power that had pressed upon me since the moment we first entered the house. These ones attacked first, said the boy, pointing at the corpses on the floor. The strangers only defended themselves. Yue's shoulders sagged. She looked utterly flabbergasted as she thrust a finger at the corpses. You are saying you were with them, boy, she said. If they committed a crime, you are complicit. And you are telling me they attacked Mag and Albern for no reason? I did nothing, whined Pontu. These ones shoved me out of the way before the fight began. I wanted to escape, but they were blocking the door. That is true, said Mag quickly. He did not join these others in the attack, and only... Enough from you, said Yue, her face flushing. She spoke derisively to Pontu. Your friends are dead, and you will not even speak in their defense. Why did you even truck with them, boy? Rather than cowering further, Pontu straightened and pointed at his own face. An angry bruise shone on his cheek, a few fingers beneath one bulging eye. They were not my friends. They paid me, and I ran errands for them, but they were never grateful for my work. They were a bad lot, and I thank the sky that these strangers rid the town of them. We did not need them here any more than we need the vampire. Hist! Cried Yue, knuckles going white as they gripped her club. Vampire? I said. What vampire? Nothing, said Yue. Ignore him. He is a foolish boy. She seized Pontu's shoulder and pulled him to her side as though protecting him from Mag. With the only living testimony on your side, I cannot hold you, but I am warning you now, you are no longer welcome here. Fetch what supplies you need and then ride from Lanshui with all haste. Trouble follows the two of you like a heavy storm, and I will not tolerate it. Now get out. We still want to know why he was following us, I said to Yue. I suggest you accustom yourselves to disappointment, she replied. What was that talk of a vampire, said Mag. If this town is in danger, I said it was none of your concern, said Yue. Fetch what you need and go. Yesterday you told us you did not want us to leave without speaking with you first, I pointed out. Consider those orders changed, said Yue. If you are gone before the day's end, it will not be too soon. We collected our weapons from Ashta and left the house. I did not glance back over my shoulder until we were several streets away. Finally I stepped to the side of the street, Mag beside me. Well, that was a near thing, I said. Near indeed, said Mag. Not that I was in any great danger. I could have trounced those constables with my eyes closed, though I can understand why you would be frightened. I glared at her for a long moment, and she met my gaze without flinching. But both of us could only last a few moments before our faces broke into grins and we chuckled together. Sky above, I thought we were doomed when that boy stepped into the room, I said. I wonder what made him speak in our defense. I would like to ask him, said Mag, and we should ask after the weremage, too, since he is the last person we know who might know anything about her. Yet he is with Yue, I said, and I think we would be pressing our luck if we tried to seek him out again after all the trouble we have raised today. Agreed, said Mag. Home, then, or what passes for it. We turned our steps towards the Sunspear. Okie dokes. And that is it for me tonight. Yes, it's very exciting, Chewy. Are you an excited Chewy? What an excited Chewy it is. Oh, it's such an excited Chewy. And I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh, Lord. And I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh, Lord. Just marking down my time. Two hours and 15 minutes. Oh, Lord. Ah. Chewy. You want to say hi? Up. Oh, what? Yeah, come on, up. Oh, what a good boy. What a good boy he is. Oh, yes. Oh. Who's a happy boy? Who's a happy boy who wants to say hi to stream? Yes. Yes, it's a good chew. It's a good chewer. Good. What a good chew. What a good chew he is. I'm teaching him bad habits. He's not supposed to jump on people who are sitting. But it's worth it. It's worth it to show you off to stream because you're such a handsome little boy. What a handsome boy you are. Yes. 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 Oh. You can tell he's very uncertain. He's like, I'm jumping up on him while he's sitting. I'm in his lap, and he's like letting me lick his face. These are all things he encourages me not to do most of the time. But sometimes I just want to say hi to the Chooster. I just want to say hi to the Chooster. All right, buddy. Well, thank you for coming and hanging out, everybody. I very much doubt that anybody I follow is streaming right now, but let's take a quick look. And then I'll round us out with a little closing time. Oh, you know, we can toss a raid over to Trixler. Yeah, we'll give that a shot. But first, we gotta play it quiet because the whole house is asleep. But closing time. Open all the doors and let you out into the world. Closing time. Turn all of the lights on over every boy and every girl. Closing time. One last call for alcohol, so finish your whiskey or beer. Closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I know who I want to take me home. I know who I want to take me home. I know who I want to take me home. Take me home. Closing time. Time for you to go out to the places you will leave from. Closing time. This room won't be back on. This stream won't be back on till your brothers or till your closing time. This stream won't be back on till your brothers or your sisters come. Gather up your jackets and move it to the exit. I hope you have found a friend. Closing time. Every stream's beginning comes from some other stream's end. Yeah. And with that, we're Nicole, how dare you? We're tossing a raid over to Trixler. Apparently I can't. Oh no, I can. Yeah, tossing a raid over to Trixler. Good night, everybody. Good to see you. We're going to finish the proofread tomorrow, and then we're going to format the hardcover. It's all very exciting. Thanks for coming by and hanging out. I will catch you next time. Bye.